we will begin the June 5th meeting of the Rancho Senior Recreation and Park District Board of Directors meeting. Roll call to order, and pledge of allegiance.
Sorry, Chair, if I could just correct that, June 19th.
Yeah, June 19th.
Yeah,
I meant to
thank
say, you're looking at the wrong agenda, sorry. Teresa, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. Please join and place your right hand over your heart and join with me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Teresa. Roll call.
Director Dennert,
Here.
Director Gray,
Here.
Director O'Brien,
Here.
Vice Chair Avila.
Here, and I will indicate that I am on Zoom tonight. Based on the many symptoms I've had the past several days, it is likely that I have a contagious illness.
And Chair Freeman.
Here. Agenda review.
Yeah, Chair, a few items. On agenda item 9A, I have a small correction to the agreement attachment for the concessionaire. It starts with, it's supposed to be the Fifth Amendment, and the title of it indicates Fifth Amendment, but in the body of the agreement it references the Fourth Amendment. So when we get that item, I'd recommend we do it as amended to clarify that it's the Fifth Amendment. Secondly, I wanted to note that staff doesn't have a need for a closed session this evening. That was put on the agenda, but all the issues have been resolved and we don't have a need for a closed session. If it's the board's pleasure, we could remove the closed session from this evening's agenda. Lastly, I wanted to note there's two items that are somewhat related. I have a recommendation. Item 8A is the adoption of the district's budget, both capital and operating. And then the board, I anticipate the board's going to have a discussion under item 9B that could have budget implications. What I would recommend is that we keep it the same on the agenda, hear the budget, and if it's the board's pleasure, move on with potentially adopting that budget. And then any direction that I get under 9B that's budget related, we have more steps in the budget process. I can bring back the budget as amended based on the direction under 9B. So I'd recommend, that being said, you also have the option to flip the two so that you could adopt the budget the other way.
I was going to suggest flipping the two. Considering the fact that given the amounts that we have on the analysis under 9B, to adopt a budget that has a $2,750,000 earmarked for the activity center phase 3 just would seem insincere without the discussion of the item. So I would recommend that 9B be discussed before 8A.
What is the pleasure of the board?
That makes sense to me.
That does make sense, actually. I think that we probably should
Dave? Swip them?
split them. Swap them.
I mean, it really, we adopt it, it's not really a permanent budget, so
It's true, yeah.
it really doesn't matter.
Which is easier for staff? That's my question. Either way, does it matter, or?
Director Dinner, did you say flip them?
Yeah, I was good with flipping them. I mean, we're going to discuss everything anyways, so.
I understand Director Avila's point. He has a valid point about we're still discussing an item that's in the budget. I don't want to make more work for staff if we can afford it.
Yeah, I think either way is good with staff. Just the only point is we do have to adopt the budget before June 30th. So to the extent that we're going to talk about 9B, we still need to meet our legal deadline to adopt the budget by June 30th. So.
Well, but on the chance that we can do that tonight, I don't see the downside in discussing 9B first.
I didn't say there wasn't, I just said staff's fine with that. I was just pointing out that if we get to 8A, we need to make sure that we adopt a budget tonight. Okay.
What I heard from the board was it was fine, we'll take B before A.
Okay. So if I could just clarify, Chair. So for the public that's listening, There's an item, new business, item 9B. It's further review and direction regarding Activity Center Phase 3 construction project. That item will be moved earlier in the agenda to precede item 8A. So that item will be heard before item 8A.
Are there
We
any
need a
other
roll call on
changes?
that, on the agenda change?
Dan, I have one more question about the agenda, but are we good with that?
Yeah, fine.
I don't see very many members of the public here tonight, but I do see a few. And for the people that we do see, I see Chris back there. What item, if he has public input, would you anticipate that he should give public input during?
To the extent projects are discussed under 9B generally regarding the affordability of the activity center, he could speak under 9B if the projects are being discussed, or item 8A, the budget.
I don't have any cards, green cards. Would you fill out a card on the item you wish to speak to?
I didn't mean to speak for him. He didn't say he wanted to speak to me, but I just anticipated that he might have input.
He could also speak under both, because you get 3 minutes per agenda item, so.
So it's the consensus we will take.
I think that's fine.
Did you have any other corrections to the agenda?
That is it, Chair.
Okay. We will move on then to public statements, and that's for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address an item that is not on the agenda? Is there anyone on Zoom that has an issue they would like to bring forward that is not on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, I'll go to approval of minutes for the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District Board of Directors meeting June 5th, 2024. Do I have a motion or any corrections or changes?
I'll move for
I have one brief correction. Under reports by board members, under my comments, first line, it says Vice Chair Alba reported 3 residents. I believe I said several residents because I've never had an exact number on the dog park item. So I just have the word 3 changed to several.
Noted, Ed, and we'll make that correction.
I'll move to approve the minutes with that correction.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Director Dennert,
Yes.
Director Craig,
Aye.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila,
Aye.
and Chair Freeman.
Yes.
Motion carries with unanimous vote.
With regard to item 6, the consent agenda. Approval of the May 31 accounts payable check register and May 17 payroll check register. B, approval of resolution establishing the 2024-25 appropriations limitation in accordance with Article 13B of the Constitution of the State of California. And C, approval of award of contract for weed abatement services at various district parks and open space. Are there any questions or?
I do have a question on item C that Wayne could probably answer for me. It's about the weed abatement.
Okay, Director Dinner, we should probably pull C. You'll say you want to pull item C because you have a question.
Correct.
And then we move to an item. If the other two are fine, we take a motion on item 6A and 6B.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Director Dennert,
Yes.
Director Craig,
Aye.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila,
Aye.
and Chair Freeman.
Yes.
Motion carries with unanimous
And we'll
vote.
go to item C, approval award of contract for weed abatement.
The reason I had questions on it is, I know we go with the lowest bidder, and that makes sense, and I like the prices that came in. I appreciate the work that contractors offered. But I'm looking at the percentage work in the 2 communities of St. Valley and Oak Park, because the second and third place bidders were charging us more for Oak Park than Simi. But the winning bid was charging us more for Simi than Oak Park. Do you know how they came to that determination? Is it like distance from their office or total acres?
No, I don't. I actually don't know that.
Which place has more work to be done?
Simi Valley.
The winning bid is a good price, and it made sense, you know, more work at Simi Valley, so it costs more money. I just didn't know about those other two.
Yeah, it's hard to determine how the contractor breaks it down because we only asked for 2 lump sums, Simi Valley and Oak Park. He could have built his profit margin and just put it into Simi Valley instead of breaking it up and putting it into Oak Park. So it's actually the total value of the overall work that is more important than the division between Simi Valley and Oak Park.
And would you say, like I'm looking at the rough numbers there, 30 to 20, is that about the correct division of the work to do?
Yeah, it's pretty close. That's pretty much what our bids were last year. I think this is like $2,000 or $3,000 higher than what we paid last year, but I expected that.
Yeah, I was happy with the prices that came through.
So was I.
That's all the questions I had.
Okay, any other questions? Do I have a motion of approval?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Director Jeter?
Yes.
Director Craig?
Aye.
Director O'Brien?
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila?
Aye.
Chair Freeman?
Chair, yes.
Motion carries with unanimous vote.
Go to presentations, scheduled items, and public hearings. Presentation of part-time employee of the month for May 2024 to Katrina Brewer, Recreation Specialist 2.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Teresa Pennington, the District's Director of Administration, will provide staff's report.
Thank you, Chair Freeman and members of the board. The part-time employee of the month for May 2024 is Karina Brewer. Karina is a Recreation Specialist 2 in the Recreation Department. She's been with the district for 1 year, and this is her first Employee of the Month award. The person who submitted the nomination stated, since her time with the district, Karina has been promoted from Recreation Attendant to Recreation Specialist due to her abilities and talents that she has displayed while working in Oak Park. During the past month, Karina has been responsible for revamping and taking charge of the park rental procedures and has processed nearly 50 park rentals independently. This includes changes and adjustments due to the weather. Karina took on major responsibilities for the Egg Scramble event, even though it was canceled due to the weather. She set up all the vendor point of contact, obtained insurances, and scheduled and planned locations. She has also been working on securing instructors and vendors for the first Wellness Expo this month. The planning of this event would not have been possible without her help, as she took on a large amount of the initial work. Independent of these responsibilities, Karina has received praise on numerous occasions from community members and patrons who've expressed her ability to help them and ensure the success of their programs, rentals, and events. Karina always displays exceptional customer service and an extremely positive attitude and has done a great job while working for Rancho Cini. She's an invaluable member of our team and has been a great addition to our staff and very much deserving of this recognition. Congratulations.
I just want to say thank you, and I'm excited to see kind of what I can do in the future.
Karina, I do have a quick question for you after Zach speaks.
You want to go first or you want me to? Go ahead.
I'll be quick. When we have good employees, especially when you're being recognized so quickly after joining our organization, I'm curious of how we recruited you. Like, which one of our employees told you about it, or how did we get you?
A girl that I know who actually works here, her name's Lila, was in a biology or chemistry class with me, and she kind of talked about how she got on. And a couple months went by, and then I said, "Oh, I'm gonna check it out," because I was looking for a job, and it ended up just kind of working out. So.
I didn't know that, but Lila, who served on our advisory committee, that's another reason we get youth involved is they reach out to other people we might not know and recruit you.
Yeah, she was very excited to work here, and so I thought I'd check it out.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I just said,
Karina, this is Ed Avila here. Yeah, congratulations on the award. I hear really good things about you. I know Oak Park can be like a really nice place to work, but it has its challenges too, being isolated. And it's become pretty clear over time, the last couple of years, that the people of Oak Park are really happy with what we do out there. And obviously for the last year, you've been a big part of that, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be brief, but I have to take the opportunity to embarrass Karina for just a second. When I walked into the community center about a year ago, I saw Karina standing behind the front desk, and I said, I know this child, this kid is familiar to me. This kid was in our AM/PM clubs as a kindergartner with my daughter, and went through the AM/PM club at Maybora Park for 5 or 6 years before we lost that club. So I've known Karina since she was even littler than she is now. And I can say that I know that the staff out there has been really happy with her work, and I'm very excited to see someone who kind of grew up in our programs transition to a role in our department and do such a nice job. So congratulations. Great.
I have other board comments. Don't go away yet. I just want to thank you. I mean, you've done an amazing job in 1 year. And obviously, you're very special to get this recognition. And thank you very, very much. I think other board might have a comment.
I'll just echo the thanks, and it can oftentimes be a thankless job. As everyone has said, it's incredibly impressive that 1 year in, you're being recognized. And thank you for all your work, and absolutely well deserved and well done.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that too. Thank you for all your hard work, and yeah, it can't be easy. I know I cannot imagine how it would be, but thank you.
Come on up for
Thank you.
This was a cool picture.
It was nice to meet you. Thank you. Karina, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to continued business. And we're going to take item B, approval. Excuse me, I got skipped something here, my apologies. Continued business, adoption of preliminary district. No?
Chair, we're gonna do item 9B now.
Yeah, I didn't do this right. My apologies. Further review and direction regarding activity center phase 3 construction. That sounds so simple and well done, doesn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Wayne Nakaoka, the District Director of Planning and Maintenance, will provide staff's report.
Chair Freeman, members of the board. At his meeting on May 15th, 2024, due to some confusion regarding the overall probable construction cost of the community center or the activity center phase 3 project, some requests regarding reductions in scope of work. The board asked us to come up with some alternative concepts for cost reduction that would not significantly change the timeline for the project or the completion timeline for the project. I should mention that I did reference in the staff report that we did receive a estimate of probable construction costs from our architect, who had it done by a third party, which indicates that it's just over $10 million for Activity Center Phase 3 construction project. It should be noted that this is a high estimate. The architect believes very high because it's not based on the construction drawings. It's based on probabilities. And they made a lot of assumptions in it. And from that, I took those assumptions and did the estimate breakdowns in the report itself. And they're all based upon that estimate that we got from the architect. We have 6 alternatives for you tonight. I do have a PowerPoint presentation to help better explain this whole ordeal for you. Do I get a clicker? Oh. best I can. Oops.
Point that.
Oh, there it is. Okay, the first alternative is just building the basic gymnasium floor plan as designed by the project architect. I am not modifying the existing building structures, which is the upper level, the bathrooms below it, and excluding out from the second floor area or the new area, the two multi-purpose rooms and the party room that's on the downstairs floor. Do I have a pointer?
Yeah, the bottom one.
Oh, okay. This is the area where we're eliminating the new upper floor area. That has the multi-purpose rooms both on the upper and lower floor, and party room below, and you remember that there's a kitchen area up above here. The base area that I'm basing all of these estimates on, which will not change throughout the whole thing, is the gymnasium floor area, which is that's in the red area. Everything below here in the first 4 options will remain the same. We do have a little bit of probability in these areas. I briefly spoke to Zach, and what he'd like to put in there is probably some kind of spectator viewing area. It's very simple. And probably, if I can get this pointer to work right, in this area, maybe we just put a carpeted floor area and call it a multi-purpose area. He mentioned, what's that game with the beanbags?
Cornhole.
Oh, cornhole. Shows you how well I know sports. Cornhole, or maybe some other type of sports in that area that we could do that's simple. It doesn't cost a lot to put in there. Another thing that still needs to be determined is what we do at activity room 4, which is right here. Since I can't see the wall here, as you all know, and as it's stated in the reports, the probable construction cost for this basic floor plan is between $5.1 and $5.9 million. Okay, I know that you're all going to ask me, why is it so expensive based upon the preliminary estimates that we had of about $2.8 to $3.5 million. You got to remember that in the first case, we have a $1 million air conditioning unit that needs to go into that portion of the building. We're basing this on the $1.2 million we recently awarded for a replacement unit for the office areas. There is no air conditioning in the middle section of the activity center. Another construction cost consideration is that play equipment apparatus, which is 3 stories, and it's wonderful, I like it. It's $810,000 to purchase and install. That is the estimate behind that thing. It's close to $1 million. Another consideration is that this ceiling area, to redo this area to make a flat deck ceiling like shown in these artist renderings, either with the open truss assembly or a flat deck assembly, is going to cost a little bit of money. Right now there are 9 swamp cooler holes in the roof and 23 skylight holes in the roof. So I need to cover up, or Douglas needs to cover up, 32 holes in the ceiling and repair the roof on top of that just to get the ceiling done. That doesn't include the new electrical lighting. This is just my estimates to get the roof deck done. The last element that's going to cost us a considerable amount of money is the gymnasium floor itself. The estimate is between $500,000 and $750,000, and I'm basing this upon the recent replacement of the gym floor over at the community center, which was close to $450,000. This floor is a little more complex because it's a multi-purpose rubberized surface, and it has multi-purpose lines in it. And we don't know if we're going to do or not a synthetic turf grass overlay for the futsal. So it's a range between $500,000 and $750,000. I know this only adds up to $3.5 million, and the estimate is at 5.1. But we do have infrastructure improvements, electrical, gas, walls that we have to construct. We do have some new structural that we have to put in for the new doors that we still have to put in for emergency access. I just thought I'd lay out.
I know we're
some-
going to hold like in-depth conversations and questions at the end, but just briefly, why do we have to cover the natural lights?
What's that?
The lights, why do we have to cover them?
Oh, there's skylights. If you're gonna put a flat deck in them, you don't wanna leave the skylights above them. We could leave them in there. It's just gonna be a leaky problem for you in the future. It's better to take them out, put the roof deck smooth and cover it up. It's just a better choice.
Okay. Are you saying about the skylights, it's better to cover them up? Did I get
Yeah,
that?
take them out.
Take them out?
Yeah.
Why is that better?
Please.
Because the roof will be flat, then we do have to do a roof eventually. You don't want to have to go around the skylights, because of plastic domes, they do have to be replaced after a certain amount of time. They're just like HVAC systems sitting up on an extended curve. So they actually do sit about 18 inches above the ground up on the ceiling.
Okay.
To make it a flat deck roof, once you redo the roof, guaranteed, or I shouldn't say that, you're less probable to have leaks or complications in the future.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Okay? This one was a clever idea. Based upon the general floor plan and estimate of the bottom part, Dan came up with activating the upstairs portion as is to be an observation area and a waiting area, which frees up more floor space for Zach to put in more multi-purpose things on the bottom floor that are not critically expensive. I do have the estimates in here. I did give you the total number, but I'm just going to give you the bottom line number here. To do basic improvements to the upstairs area, just carpeting, furniture, nothing special, paint the walls, maybe make that office of always wanted up there, which is called the observation supervisor's office, into a meeting room. It's quite large. I've got an estimate between $55,000 and $64,000, so it's not that much more added on to the basic alternate one schematic.
That's what I was going to say. This is all cumulative
Yes.
add-on.
Yes,
We'd start with the base
that's correct.
of the first one, and it builds from there.
That's
So
right.
the differences in costs or the cost to create the new space under alternative
That's correct.
two.
These are all escalating costs and
Because there are
options
some
for you.
base costs that are what they are.
Yes.
Okay.
Wayne,
Yes, sir.
just two quick questions, because this is an idea that I've been proposing for a while. Nita and I did a walkthrough on it. I just want to be clear, what we would be doing upstairs is essentially having the decor match the downstairs in terms of the walls, the paint, and then have a viewing area. And we'll see later, but essentially that's going to wind up being about 1% of the cost that doing the upstairs the way we originally would have intended.
I don't know about the 1%, but you are correct. The way we're going to do it in the future is quite expensive.
Right. Well, 55,000 as opposed to 5.5 million. 1%.
Yes, those numbers do come to mind in my head.
One more question on that. If we did this with a seating area and the decor, because again, this is something I've been advocating, would there be much extra expense to putting like a TV monitor or a TV screen up there that would also be an opportunity in the sitting area for the parents to watch their children? Is that something that would be an option?
That's already included in my estimate.
Oh, that is in the estimate.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
2 televisions, and I even included satellite television, which are the amenities costs on, you don't have it in your staff report because you're at home right now, but I put in amenities for the upstairs area between $20,000 and $32,000, with the construction range of $35,000 to $40,000, which gave us the $55,000
Okay, so
to
that
$64,000.
answers my question. So that's a lot of bang for the buck for the 55 to 60,000. Okay, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. On to option 3. This is a hybrid option here. Once again, it starts off with the basic floor plan and estimate, but this one proposes to add tenant improvement walls and a false ceiling to the multi-purpose rooms and the dance room areas. This is non-structural improvements. We're not going to change, we're not going to pop open any new windows in the walls. It's just creating 3 new rooms. Typical to the offices upstairs, they're all tenant improvement type, non-load bearing walls. Kate understands what I'm talking about. We'll put in a false ceiling deck with ceiling tiles in it and electrical lighting. The MP area in this one the upstairs area is not included in this one yet. The downstairs improvements remain the same. The only outstanding thing is what we do with the activity room number 4. We don't know what to put in there yet. Still got to talk to Zach. What is the best bang for the buck is the words he would use. Pretty simple construction. Unfortunately, it does raise the cost of construction of the project. I figured this estimate between $3.6 and $7.3 million. Alternative number 4 is basically doing everything downstairs. Do I have that pointer again? No?
The bottom.
Everything downstairs with it, which is that $6.3 to $7.3 million estimate. Actually, that number's wrong, but darn it, I'm having a heck of a time with these buttons. With the addition of that upstairs improvement, which we know is about $55,000 to $64,000. This alternative does everything that alternative number 2 does, but it does give you the tenant improvement, multi-purpose rooms, and party room. So Zach can rent the facility, have a little more broader scope for renting the facility. Estimate between this is $6.4 and $3.7 million. It's not that much more because we're only adding on $60,000 to the estimate of alternative number 3. Alternative number 5 is not a hybrid. This is based upon the actual construction plans for the project. What it is constructing everything downstairs, the new walls, the new bathrooms, the new weight room, the educational room, which you call the VR room, both the multi-purpose rooms and the party room. And then there's this, I'm having a heck of a time with this pointer, conversion of the storage area that's down in here to create a recreational storage area, but you are going to need it. Every place needs storage, and a more of a formal office area, file storage area. We still need to find another place for some of our files to go, but we can do that in the future. The upstairs portion, all the walls, basic hard construction will be performed as part of this phase. The only thing is we're not going to buy any amenities and we're not going to do any finish improvements. So no painting, no ceiling tiles. You'll see that the
Very good.
this thing is really aggravating me. I'm having a real hard time pointing.
It's my favorite part of the
By the
meeting.
way, Wayne, your using that pointer is not doing good for an old dude who's had dizzy spells with his own.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at this. It's not there, but I was going to say, as you can see, the bathroom improvements for the upstairs areas don't even have toilets and sinks. We're just going to put the walls in and stuff in the plumbing. This is pretty basic. We can do this work on the upstairs in the future. If you wanted to, your future maintenance staff could probably build room by room and do the improvements. They're quite talented, save you a lot of money. Excuse me. But we are saving overall construction costs about $1 million. So staff is estimating that the probable construction cost for this alternative, I'm sorry I'm losing my voice again, is $10.1 million to $10.3 million. It's a good option. It just costs a heck of a lot of money. I'm not going to use a pointer anymore, but alternative number 6 is your full project with everything in it, including all amenities, the toilet paper, the nuts and bolts, and the startup costs, which staff is estimating between $11 million and $11.1 million. That's it for my 6 alternatives we have. I've got to really thank Douglas. I think he might have put a bomb in my car or something, because last week I was pushing him for numbers like you wouldn't believe, and he did the graphics for me, so I really appreciate everything Douglas did on this project. He really did a lot.
Director Evelyn, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have some questions. Wayne, so just so that it's clear, of the $6 million or so that it would cost to do the upstairs, about $5 million of that is, or close to $5 million of that is just the structural changes themselves, just adding on to the building, doing the foundation down below. That's where most of the cost for the upstairs comes in, correct?
That is correct.
Right. Hypothetically speaking, if for some reason the board were to go with the $11 million or $10 million option, if there were party rooms up there, if there was a kitchen up there, if there was a gaming area up there, would that mean extra staffing costs as well?
I'm assuming so, yes.
Right. And then for the type of events that would house be housed in those party rooms upstairs, or what we have in mind there, those would be the type of larger events that would also then raise the issue of parking space. Is that right?
That is correct. We would have to scale any activities in the activity center to fit the existing parking plus whatever we can scrape up from the outside.
As far as questions, I think that that covers my. I do have one more question. In the downstairs area, and I'm not suggesting we do this. I'm just curious. Have we looked into in terms of the play apparatus, which is coming in now at over 800,000, 850,000? Have we looked into alternatives that might be almost as impressive, but at a significantly lesser cost?
No, we haven't.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Director Dinner?
I had a question about options 2 and 4 that Zach might be able to best answer. Zach, my question is, among those options, one allows us to bring in more hardwood dance floors for classes like dancing, obviously, and yoga. And those things generate revenue. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are on, would it generate more revenue or just shift it from the other activity center to here, from the community center?
That's a good question. I think what I would propose, and I'm just putting this idea out there, is to give us some direction on what the cost is. I would like the opportunity to say we were going to determine what we were going to build here, to go back and work with Douglas on how to best maximize the space in any of those scenarios. So when you see what option 2 or option 4 might have, I would still like the opportunity to work with Douglas on maximizing the square footage just for that reason, to be able to create an operating budget that generates enough revenue or at least offset some of the costs of what the new design would look like. So it's hard for me to tell you what the revenue would be if we start moving rooms around or start putting hardwood floors in versus multi-purpose room floors, but ultimately, yes, if we lose what I would call the party rooms or the multi-purpose rooms in any scenario, I would like the opportunity to move what's happening in NPR, what's currently activity room 4, into some type of multi-purpose room that we could use to generate revenue through classes and activities for the public. Yeah.
And the next question will still be directed towards you, but Dan, is it accurate to say, like, we narrowed it down to a couple options tonight and said go out and try to get alternative bids between those? That's possible for us to give you that direction, right?
Yes. So if we could do bid alternates. So if we had the base price and the board wanted to look at prices for additional components in addition to, say, alternative 1 or 2, we can work with Wayne and Douglas to add those as bid adds.
I meant it in this way, like if I asked you tonight to give us more details on, not the 6 options, but we narrowed down the price options and said 5 and 6.
So I think the concept tonight was kind of to steer the ship in the direction you may want to go, recognizing the cost. And I would anticipate after that, we would come back in the white areas that are not completely designed, because we're changing the whole scope of the project if we really downsize it. We'd probably come back in a month and a half with a conceptual on what to do in the white areas, but also with Zach's analysis of how that made it impact revenue and also cost.
Zach, I understand that we might narrow it down tonight, but part of that
Brian,
is,
may I just follow up on your original question, because I didn't understand?
I was saying, could I give this direction tonight?
What I thought Brian was asking is, even if we had extra room, multi-purpose rooms, do we know whether that would just be diverting events or the use of rooms, say at the S-turn, at Rancho Santa Susana Community Center, to here? Do we even know if that would bring in extra revenue, or would it just be moving events from one place to another and not really adding to the revenue?
Director Abel, I think the answer was we do not. It depends on what we put in the space that we're leaving behind. So, and we haven't been through the detailed analysis. So we didn't want to commit to saying that without taking the areas that are now the multi-purpose rooms or activity room 4 without giving some thought to what uses might be in that portion of the building. So it could draw from the other facility, it may not, dependent on what's put in there.
I asked the question in the context of, in a few minutes after we go to community feedback, if I'm arguing for option 1 and 2 and Josh is saying 2 and 3, and I'm trying to get Josh over to a different option, if I said, Josh, you know this one brings in more revenue, but it sounds like we might not get that answer completely figured out tonight.
Yeah, I think our goal with this project has always been to create amenities that don't exist currently in the community. So I think our goal of any kind of conversation back with the planning department would be what do we continue not to have with the scope of what the board is willing to allocate, and then try to come up with the best plan that adds amenities that we don't have at the community centers currently.
And then following along with that, for the upstairs area and options 2 and 4, I see that the vision, it would be a place for parents to kick back as their children are in classes, but we could use it for other activities too, right? Like if we said, oh, tonight's scheduled to be a teen area.
I think my staff is fairly creative in maximizing spaces, so yes, I can envision that any blank space that we get in any design that we land on would be used in a variety of ways to both maximize participation and revenue.
And I like what you said about the philosophy, which is if the private sector already offers in our community, that might not be our priority, but if it doesn't, I specifically I was asking about esports. Do you know any competitors to that, to a place to go play, like as a group competition?
I'm not aware of the private sector really going down that road a whole lot. I know that there's a facility, the Sports Academy in Newberry Park currently offers esports and kind of has an esports lounge that I'm aware of, but nothing in the Simi Valley region that I'm aware of for kids at that age yet.
I don't have any more.
When it comes to some of the more expensive options, obviously they become mutually exclusive, but are there any, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, are there anything that we were to do that would make it mutually exclusive, that in the future, in 10 years, if some board had the funds and was like, let's build it out further, is there anything that we would do now that would prevent future expansion?
I would say yes. If we did option 1 or option 2, or actually 3 and 4 too. Option 1 doesn't have any improvements, structural improvements. Option 2, 3, and 4 have in what I call tenant improvements only, which is not structural walls and a false ceiling deck. You will never go back and put in the structural components in a future time, because you're going to have to shut down the building again. So you'll be using the futsal courts, the gymnastics area, that piece of play equipment that I really like, that 3-story habit trail. But then you have to close it down to do the construction. It can be done, except that you've got to be willing to shut down the facility.
Wayne, if I could also, options 1 through 4 do not include an elevator, which option 5 and 6 do, and options 1 through 4 do not include any type of kitchen facilities that we were getting in option 5 and 6. So it'd be running option 1 through 4 with no kitchen facility, and relative to future, and if you want to do something in the future, you'd probably have to put in an elevator if you were going to activate the upstairs. What we're going to have to do operationally, we do need to meet ADA requirements, is we're going to have to use the elevator in this side of the building in order to accommodate folks that may want to get up to the upstairs observation deck, which will be a little bit more hands-on from operating it, say mostly on the weekends. The original idea was to shut this side of the building down and just activate the middle side of the building. But if we have ADA accommodation needs, particularly with the elevator, we're going to have to somewhat leave this side of the building, and we'll have to have appropriate monitors to monitor that and monitor this side of the building, because it will be accessed on weekends.
Dan, I like how you phrased that. We didn't say it was a problem. You said it was needs. So we're looking out for people.
Yeah.
Weighing under options 2 and 4, and that downstairs observation area. I know there's some load-bearing beams, but there's no way to squeeze another cord in there, right?
No,
Okay.
the size prohibitive.
I know I'm done with questions.
Joe Burnett?
I'm just sort of echoing Director Gray's question. Suppose we picked option 1 through 4, and we knew we were never, ever in the future going to do anything with that mezzanine. It's just sitting there not being used, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that was my
Well,
question.
eventually.
Well, wait a minute, wouldn't it be used as a viewing area and a seating area? We have the TVs up there, people would be able to overlook the
Yeah,
downstairs.
people
Yes, if you selected options 2 or 4, options 1 and 3 were not. But then again, you could do in-house improvements for your planning and maintenance staff. And we could do the carpeting, painting the walls up there. And Zach, I'm sure, can go out and buy some nice tables and chairs and put it up there and the TV monitors.
It could be a hangout place.
Yes, he can be activated later on.
Okay, all right. All right, well, yeah, I mean, I'll save some of my other comments for comment. I just had that one question. Okay.
Chair, if I could, I just want to ask Wayne a question. Wayne, if we wanted to put a kitchen in down the road in the future, if we did option 2 or 4, would there be an opportunity to potentially add, and I'm not saying a full kitchen, but some place where you could, have food?
It's always a possibility. 2 and 4, the best option would be to put the kitchen upstairs again, which is unfortunate because the way the plumbing of the building works, I can hook it to the men's or women's plumbing chase from the upstairs bathrooms, which the adjoining wall goes straight onto that deck, upper deck area. Doing it downstairs is a little problematic because the bathrooms are in a separate cubby hole off to the side.
So you could down the road, if we
Yes.
had the need and demand for a warming kitchen or space to prepare
Yes.
food, we could add that later. Same with the elevator. Could you add, if we did either option 2 or 4 or 1, or could you add an elevator later if the demand presented itself?
Yes, it would be a significant greater cost because we won't be pulling the power that's required for the elevator, or it's a hydraulic elevator, the tanks for the system at this time. We'd have to make space allocations at a later date.
So back to Josh's question, now precluding future uses, we could still add a kitchen use.
Yes.
Or an elevator sometime
correct.
down the road if
Yes.
the need or demand was there. And okay, thank you.
The elevator question made me think of something. So on the weekends, what you're saying is we wouldn't use any of the meeting rooms that are currently here in this part of the building, if that was done?
It depends on demand, it depends on how we schedule it. Part of the idea was that if we didn't have to activate this side of the room, that would be less monitors we needed, people wandering around. If the demand was there, we would activate this side on the weekend, so we just wanted the option to have the middle portion or just the activity center accessible without having access to this side of the building.
Okay.
Because there's staffing cost in having both sides of the building open a little bit.
I would imagine, and this is a question, the elevator is a big cost to the total construction of getting
It's
5
about
and 6?
between $400,000 and $500,000, $500,000.
Is that the elevator or the structure to make the elevator and
That's
all the other improvements?
That's based upon the estimate we received, that's the total cost of installing an elevator.
Okay, modifying the structure?
Yes, digging the piston hole, or if it's cable hanging on the roof, the lift system.
So on 4, when you said you would put a low ceiling in then for those rooms? that are-
I would probably put in probably a 12-foot ceiling deck, false ceiling deck. This room also happens to be 9 feet. I'd probably make it a little taller for Zach so he has a little more headspace.
Okay,
Makes the room a little bit more multi-purpose. I could take it all the way up to the ceiling if you wanted. And not within the ceiling deck.
no, that's allowed, but
It's a lot of
keeping an air
walls.
conditioning waste, actually.
Yes.
I was just thinking about how you would do that.
It would be a simple wood truss, or probably how can I explain it? It's called a TJI. It's a composite wood board.
And then you'd have to pump air conditioning and heating in there.
The beams or the truss that we use, the TJI is, how can I explain it? It's an eye.
It's an I shape, it's like they take plywood and make the flange top and bottom, and the web is also.
Okay.
Yeah. So in between that, we won't have any roof on top of it, but between the truss decks or the trussed elements, you can put the heating and air conditioning elements tied to it.
It's stronger, that shape is stronger.
You can also probably store some lightweight material up above there because there will be 3,500 square feet of dead space above there. So we'll have to figure out something to do with it. I'm sure Robert Mendez can store a lot of things up there.
Does anyone have any other questions? With that, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this wonderful activity center that someday will be just perfect? Is there anyone on Zoom that has a comment on this? With that, I'll close the public hearing and go back to staff comments, board comments. Director Howard?
Sure. Wayne, I just want to have one more question for clarification. I just want to make sure I'm looking at the numbers right. Option 4 would still be upwards of $1 million more than option 2, and is that correct?
That is correct.
And likely would wind up going over $7 million for the whole project.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So, my position started out several years ago. I think it was probably 3.5 years ago when we met on this. I think the concept and the idea of doing the whole thing was a great idea. The math from 4 to 1 and 2, but it's become clear over the past couple of years that the cost was going to be way more than we expected, and I would have thought double the cost of what we originally expected would have been staggering and wouldn't have been the right thing to do. But now we're looking to do everything 4 times the cost of what was originally projected. I just think that's unconscionable. It's not looking out for our community. It's not taking care of recreation. I've said it before. We're not in the business of having parties or throwing parties or having events. If there are locations where we can do it and it can be somewhat profitable to us, it's a nice thing to have. But I think the example that I would give here, I'll pick on my friend Josh and my friend Brian here. Josh, if I told you that it was going to cost you $5 million to open a business, and of course Brian Denner would lend you the $5 million. But if I told you it was going to cost you $5 million to open a business, and then I told you that you're not going to make half of that back in your lifetime, you wouldn't even consider that. And that's really what we're talking about here. And actually, to do the whole upstairs would be probably closer to 6 million more than just doing the downstairs. It's just, it's not plausible. It's not anywhere close to within the budget that we had in mind. It would just be irresponsible, not just in terms of the types of things that we want to fund now, but things that we want to fund in the future. You know, our buildings are going to constantly need improvement. There's going to constantly be maintenance issues. There's going to be requests for new activities. At some point, we're probably going to be building pickleball complexes. I mean, if that continues. And the money for all these things just wouldn't be there if we went with option 5 or option 6. So for me, the ideal alternative would be alternative number 2. It's essentially alternative number 1, which is the bottom floor, and then alternative 2 makes the upstairs usable. It gives it utility, and it makes it nice. It's a nice area. The decor would match the downstairs. There would be a viewing area. There would be TV monitors, which the parents would love, where they can watch their kids downstairs. And it would be a nice, comfortable, exciting area. And the downstairs would still be phenomenal. And that is the recreation area, and that's what we're about. So for me, alternative 2 is by far the ideal option here. Even at that, I think alternative 2 is more expensive than I ever hoped it would be, but we have to understand the realities of the situation. And the thing with alternative 2 is, instead of costing us $5 to $6 million more, the upstairs costs us $50,000 to $60,000 more, which is basically 1% of what doing the entire upstairs would cost us. So that to me seems like the ideal alternative. I do see the merit in alternative 4, but then I do start balancing it against the cost again, and I can't get myself to accept more than $1 million in terms as far as expense goes for alternative number 4, which may or may not give us something that provides us with more revenue. It likely will wind up costing us more than it gets us. So I do like the concept of alternative 4. I just think the cost, the extra cost for 4 versus 2 just doesn't make sense to me. So I think alternative 2 would be great. And I want to say, if you go upstairs and you look at the upstairs area and you look down and you picture what's been designed for the downstairs area, it's going to be an amazing feature for the community. It's going to be an amazing area for the community and for recreation. And so I want to say with that, I think Douglas and Jonathan and all those involved with the design, I mean, you are the heroes here. Whether we go with the whole concept, and I sure hope this board doesn't decide to go with the whole concept because of the obscene expense and cost involved, but whether we do that or whether we go with alternative 2 or go with alternative 4, none of this would have been possible without the amazing design. It's the work that went into the design and the creativity and the planning that brings us to a point where we have these alternatives. All of these alternatives will provide for an excellent facility that will be a wow for the community. And for that, I applaud our design and planning team. Again, Douglas, Jonathan, all those who worked on that. You've gotten us to this point, and I would just be giddy and excited over alternative number 2 getting done and what that's going to mean to the community. So that's my strong recommendation. With the idea that if it was just less costly, I do see the merit in alternative number 4.
Director Dinner?
I'm open to 2 and 4, and my thought process is both those, as far as bang for our buck, to say it bluntly, give us the most activities for people of different ages for I wouldn't say low cost because it's a high cost, but Ed, when you first brought this up, I didn't know where you're going with it, and I wasn't as open to it, but as you've argued for it and I've seen the different options that we have, I realize some of the options might be really good, but they're not affordable. If you are only looking at this project and you're a member of the public and you came out tonight or were watching on this on YouTube, you might say, well, in the overall budget, it's possible. But if you start thinking, well, what other projects need to be cut? And those other projects are not part of this presentation, obviously, but I realize those other projects we've agreed, taken public comment, the public has spoken and said they want those other projects. So for that reason, I support 2 and 4, and I've got some input on specific things on there, but I think something that we should consider is possibly just asking, Dan could give me a feedback on this. Dan, if after discussing it tonight with, for a while, if I said, give us more accurate numbers for 2 and 4, could you do that without slowing down the project?
More accurate cost numbers or more accurate, you talking operating costs?
Mostly the construction costs. Like if we said to a contractor, can you give us an estimate on 2 and 4? Would that slow down the project?
So I'll ask that to Wayne. So Wayne, I think the concept is if we were to go out to bid with alternative number 2 as a base bid package, and then you were to add on, say, the constructing the rooms under alternative 4, could you do that under one bid package with a bid alternate, so to speak? And would that slow down getting out to bid?
Oh, okay, there's 2 questions there. I think Director Dinner was asking about an estimate so we can figure out what the actual cost is. You're asking for a secondary estimate?
No, I want to go out to bid.
Oh, okay.
And I was just wondering if I could say go out to bid with number 2 with the alternative of the walls for number 4.
The tenant improvement walls. Yes, we can do that.
And the question was, would that slow down us getting out to bid by putting together a bid packet that had that bid, an alternate?
If it did, it wouldn't be significant. We'd have to talk to our project architect because he's still working on the plans. We'd have to halt him and find out what stage he's at to take off that area and to design us some tenant improvement walls, which shouldn't be too difficult.
So that's what I'm going to support is option 2 with the alternative for those amenities in 4 as an alternative from our contractor. But my quick thoughts on some of the other things is I'm not convinced, but I'll be open to more facts in the future. We don't have to resolve it tonight with the skylights. I get what you're saying about leaks, but it also seems funny to cover up the lights and then install lights as much. And I like natural lighting, so if that's a significant cost to keep the skylights or improve them, I understand, but just generally I like skylights. The next part to that is over on this side, that would open to the outside, correct? Like I'm looking at the alternative to the multi-purpose and observation area. Right behind there, Zach, would that open to the outside?
Yeah, right over here.
The reason I bring that up is maybe that means we don't get a kitchen every single day, but for large events there could be a catering truck that pulls up right there, or a food truck. If there's a large tournament, a food truck might want to do business right there, and it's a nice outdoor seating area. Then we discussed esports earlier, but we don't have a dedicated place in Simi Valley. I would like, as part of either 2 or 4, just considering, Ed mentioned it earlier, upstairs kind of already looks like an esports center to me, because it's esports are played on consoles, which you could bring with you, but you need TVs and internet and couches. So it sounds like it's almost an esports lounge as it is on those 2. The reason for that, and I know it sounds funny to some people, like these kids, they should get off their devices, but esports are a legitimate social activity that brings people together, and it's better that they do it together than all at their own house online, but they're together as a team, so I think that fits it. It could also be branded, and Zach, I liked what you said about the flexibility and creativity of your team. It could be branded as a teen lounge, but maybe not every day, but when they want to do activities. Like if they want to play music on a Friday night there, that could possibly fit in. Then Ed brought up the playground, and if there's a cheaper alternative, which there might be. I definitely want something dramatic when the community feels proud and they walk in right at the beginning. But if a less expensive alternative includes an inclusive playground, which I understand is usually more expensive, but maybe that means it's smaller, I'm open to that. My last comment on that is, because between 2 and 4, there's some questions that are very specific, and usually a board sets a vision. Like as an example, the multi-purpose and observation area. well, in my mind, we have an observation area upstairs. I liked the idea of maybe there's activities there, like things already set up like cornhole, so less sitting and watching your kids play. Maybe, yeah, the kids are playing, you won't play a game right now. But if we're getting down to the level of cornhole and what other activities there, maybe that would be if we agree on a vision, but we want to figure out the small details, maybe that could be a committee of the board to say, all right, go out to bid, keep going, but if two of us want to meet with staff to talk about very specific details, that might be a good way of accomplishing that.
Dr. Gray?
May I just get one bit of clarification? Because I think Director Dennert and I are really close on how we're viewing this. So if I'm understanding the Director Dennert, what you're proposing is, and Wayne, you said you can do this, we could go out to bid and as part of the same bid, get an estimate for alternative 2 and then get an estimate as to how much more it would be to do alternative 4?
That's
Am I understanding?
correct. The base bid would be alternative number 2. The alternative or additive alternative bid would be to add the tenant improvements shown on alternatives 3 and 4, that upper area, the multipurpose rooms and the dance room.
And so we can do that and it wouldn't likely delay the project much at all?
No, it may be a little bit of delay, but not a lot.
And Director Dennert, is that what you were suggesting?
Yes.
Okay.
And then with the added part of a committee meeting to deal with the small recreational parts.
Yeah, so if I could get a point of clarification on that. So if you guys sent us down, gave us direction to pursue alternative number 2 with setting up the bid documents to get pricing for alternative 4, we would come back to you before we go out to bid with specific conceptual design for the observation area, activity room 4 and all that. So we would do that through the board before we went out to bid. But it would give us at least a structure to move toward, and we're getting off of alternative 5 and 6. We'd come back to you with the proposal and the details you're talking about, Brian. We'd need to do that before we go out to bid, because these guys are gonna have to put together very specific bid documents.
Dan, is that something we can do in reasonably short order so we don't keep?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep. Now, to that point, we can do that using a committee, or we can bring that back to the whole board. So if we want to look at redesigning like that downstairs observation area and the multi-purpose room 4, we can use a committee to do that, or we can bring it back to the whole board.
Dan?
Yeah.
Did we do what we did when you guys did your presentation on the activity center several months ago, and just each individual board member can give input, and you can kind of take that input and come back with what you propose?
Yeah, what I'd probably do is I'd have Zach and Wayne and I and Douglas put together a framework for what that addition that would look like, and then we could present that to you and take feedback.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But it would have to come back to the full board for final approval. Yeah.
That way every board member is getting input, but this can all be done in reasonably short order, right? I mean.
Yes. Well, yeah, Douglas, yeah, we can, because it's just a concept, Douglas, so we can think through with Zach. We can also, that'll also give us the opportunity to better answer the question relative to revenues and operating costs. We'll bring that back as a part of that. So I'm thinking a month and a half, we can bring it back in a month and a half because it's a concept, it's not construction drawings. So probably about a month and a half, I would guess, to get through that.
So we're looking at the first meeting in August.
Yeah, something like beginning of August, first or second meeting in August, we could bring it back.
For my fellow board members, we have 2 options on how to do that. If you all wanted to have input on those smaller details, then I think Ed has a good point, and then we'd all be briefed. If you don't have very much input on those small details like the observation area, then a committee might be more efficient because the staff doesn't have to brief all 5 of us. But whichever one your passions are for.
Director Gray, would you like to speak?
I would. I'd be happy to. I know whether there's a committee or not, I'd like to participate. I think there's lots of input. I'd like to participate in that. To keep it really brief, I did want to thank Douglas and all the staff for all the work that's gone into this. I know this has been months and years of work, and I appreciate the dreaming, and I do continue to love 5 and 6. I wish that were economically feasible, but I do like Director Dennard's concept of not necessarily going out to bid, but structuring 2 and 4 together. I think those are complementary projects. I like that 4 adds on. I will say between 2 and 4, I'm going to go with 4 every time, if that's feasible, but I'd like to chase down more exact numbers. I'd like to make this our #1 priority when it comes to capital projects, because I think determining how much this is going to cost will influence Estern Park and the rest of our capital list and what's possible and what's feasible. I'd appreciate us running through with this and really tackling it so we can then.
Yeah, to follow up on Director Gray's comments, and as we've discussed before, we've got a very robust capital plan, and there's a lot of variables in that. To my way of thinking, we need to eliminate some of the variables, which will allow you guys to make decisions on some of the other projects. So if this is the board's top priority, I charge Wayne and Douglas with getting this out to bid. It would be our #1 priority, get it out to bid as quickly as possible. Then you guys will have real numbers to which will inform you on this project, but it will also help inform you on what you want to do with some of the other projects in the capital plan.
Yeah. Well phrased.
Dr. O'Brien?
Okay, yes. All right. Well, I like alternate 5. The main reason being that I think getting the structural, all the structural work done now would be a really good idea. If we do, say, 2 or 4, if we go with 1 through 4, we should be very much aware that we're basically closing the door on ever having that upper floor complete, because if we 10 years from now, if we want to do it, we're going to have to shut down the building. We'll be losing revenue to get the structural work in place. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's essentially, you're essentially saying this big multi-purpose room and all this huge mezzanine area, it's not going to happen now or ever if we don't do the structural stuff now. That's the main reason I'm leaning toward 5. I like 4. That's actually a fairly roomy mezzanine up there. We could leave it the way it is. I want the dance rooms because they are revenue producing areas. I think we should probably try to keep those and keep the mezzanine so there's an observation area. I think that's it.
Okay.
That's where I am.
Thank you for all the work. I have a question. If to go out to bid, don't you need working drawings?
Yes.
Are we going to do working drawings on 2 plus 4?
We're going to base it on 2 and do an alternate bid for the tenant improvement walls.
Okay, so they'll have, when you go out to bid, there'll be a clear understanding of, I mean,
Yes.
it's not just concept plans, it's actually
It'll
working
be
drawings.
based on the actual working drawings.
Okay, so those would be before we went through plan check? Working drawings,
Yes.
okay.
We'll have the working drawings, have to go through plan check and then construction.
So there's potential
Yes.
modifications there.
Yes.
Okay, I prefer 5 because I like the structure, but I am a realistic person here, and I prefer 4 because I think on a per capita basis, I think we can accommodate more of the population in various ways and make it a more alive center. There'd be more activities of all different kinds, that both young, teens, adults, seniors, if those rooms get improved. And I think it just makes for more activity and more per capita, and it's a better investment financially, and we'll get better return on investment for that. So I'll go along with the option with 2 as a base and 4 as a optional bid. But I think that the long-term benefit to the building is to at least have #4.
Dan?
Yes.
Would it be, just so that it's clear, would it be beneficial to have a motion here?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so I'll make a motion and just see where it goes. So I'll make a motion that we go out to bid for alternative 2 with an alternate bid for the additions that would then make it alternative 4, and that prior to going out to bid, individual board members can meet with staff to provide their input as to how those 2 alternatives would look.
Director Abel, our attorney, has something to say.
I'll just clarify that this isn't an action item, this is just for discussion and direction. So this is just a vote for direction by you to staff.
Right, are we able to still make a motion though, so that there's clarity?
We can structure it that way, that's fine. It sounds like the vice chair wants some consensus, alternative 2 and 4. Is anybody?
With the board.
Just so it's not muddled, I'm just trying to make
Absolutely.
it so it's not muddled.
I'll
So
second that
that
motion.
would be my motion.
I'll second that motion.
I would prefer to be brought back to the whole board. Is that part of yours motion?
Right, yeah, we can all give individual input, it's all gonna come back to the board. That's right.
Not individually, as a board. I'd like
Yeah.
it brought back to the
Well,
board.
I think what Director Dennard had suggested is that before staff bring things back, that we have the opportunity to give them input. And I think Director Gray wanted to do that too, and I do, so that's why I included that as part of the motion.
We will be doing both. We'll be reviewing
Right.
we'll be reviewing staff's proposal, briefing you on staff's design, and getting feedback on that, and then bringing that back to the full board.
Okay, as long as it comes back to the
Yes.
full
Well,
board.
I agree with Director Freeman, it should come, Chair Freeman, it should come back to the whole board ultimately.
Do I have a second?
I think
will
we
second that.
have
If I could
Director
real,
Dennard, I
if
believe
I-
Director Dennard second.
Okay.
if I could real quick, I want to ask Douglas and Wayne if that works for them relative to the motion.
Okay, well, let me, make sure I got this straight. We're gonna go ahead and do some conceptual designs real fast within the
Conceptual.
next week and a half. We're gonna ship it out all to the board of directors for their
Yeah.
review and comments. We're gonna work with Zach to fill in the missing recreational elements, based on option 2, which has the unknown areas. Option 4 is going to be the alternative where we build the MP room, so there is no discussion about the MP rooms and the party room. And the only question would be the existing activity room 4. Once we get the census or some information back from the board members, we put it together in one big packet, bring it back to the board for approval, and then I can cut my architect loose. And we're gonna try to do this all before August.
No, that's not what I understood.
We're going, well, you're the one that said, I said a month and a half, so.
Well, that's-
When can you get that, when can we collectively get that done by?
I can work with Douglas starting tomorrow. We'll get some floor plans based out,
Yes.
start talking with Zach.
Well, let's do it this way. We'll meet on this tomorrow with Zach. We'll put together a calendar and we'll get it back to the board as quickly as we can. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
And we'll talk
I just
through
wanted
what
to
we
sh-
need to do.
Can I?
Is August reasonable?
Do we have a contract with someone to do the working drawings?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
We are not doing the working drawings before August.
Correct.
But ultimately, to go to bid, we will need them.
Yes.
At the beginning of this year, I think that the architect already projected that the construction documents will be completed by November of this year. So we are planning to probably go out to bid at the beginning of the year, of next year.
Okay, so it'll be easy to package it based on what he's done already.
Correct.
Okay.
But one of the things that I'm a little confused is on alternate number 4, the areas that are kind of open on alternate number 2, on alternate number 4, it's already been explained that we have multi-purpose rooms and party rooms, so that area is not going to be changed, correct?
That's the only-
We want to talk about that, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, we still, I'm saying we need to have a usage discussion with the rec folks on that.
Got it.
So it probably won't, but we just want to rebid, because we're losing the upstairs room, right, and the kitchen and all of that. We just want to talk with the rec folks to make sure from a usage standpoint that what we're proposing for downstairs fits with the need and the use, so, yeah. We just didn't, we wanted to get the ship here, but we need to have a more detailed operational conversation, so.
Wayne,
Yes, sir.
based on what Douglas just said, what are we looking at, based on the timeline he just gave for going out to bid, when are we looking at the project being completed?
It's probably a little short then. If we go out to bid in December, we award the bid in February, we're looking at completion of October, November is my best guess,
Okay.
25.
of 2025.
All right, so we had a motion and a second.
Who made the second?
I didn't.
Yeah.
Director Denner.
Mid-motion for me.
Roll call, please.
If we have a majority, no roll call is necessary. Do we have a third?
I'll serve it.
Okay. That's sufficient for direction. We have a majority.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, feel free to take the suggestion of inviting all those working on this and the condensed plan out to lunch and thanking them for
Absolutely.
the extra time, effort, and stress that we're causing them.
Okay, we'll go back to 8A. Adoption of preliminary district operation and capital improvement budget for fiscal year 2024.
Chair Freeman, can we have a 5-minute recess?
Sure. We will take a 5-minute break, be back at 9 o'clock. I'll call the meeting back to order. Call the meeting back to order, and we will move to continued business, which is item A, adoption of preliminary district operation and capital improvement budget for fiscal year 2024-25.
Thank you, Chair and Board. I'll ask the operator to put up a very brief PowerPoint. So the board reviewed we had a budget meeting on May 15th, and staff received direction from the board. This presentation will just reflect, let the board know what changes we've made based on that direction to the draft budget that we're proposing for adoption this evening. So the items that are not highlighted are all the same items you saw from your workshop on the 15th. The items that have changed since you last saw the budget, we've added the grant that we applied for the parking lot that we decided not to do. We've put that application in to help fund the equestrian center. If the equestrian center ends up costing less than that, which we hope it will, we'll use the grant to fund as much as we can, and then we'll have some savings on the equestrian center. So we've increased the equestrian center budget to reflect the grant application. We talked about this at the meeting, but it wasn't at the budget. We've got an impact to private property in the Oak Park area from the open space. I've reviewed that with staff and the attorney, and we feel like it's an issue that we need to address because we're imposing on our open space is imposing on some private property that we need to correct for. We did change golf a little bit through a discussion with between Zach and I and the new director. We put in some more equipment for the golf course, and we added the parking lot. We talked about that. That was not originally in the budget. As we were evaluating the budget and saw the condition of the parking lot, we thought that needed to be done. Likewise, we took some other things out of the golf budget that were lower priority in terms of equipment. And then lastly, we talked about the fact that we have an invoice from the county for the Sinaloa Dam repair. I mentioned that that's now included in the budget and it wasn't previously. Capital outlay, the board directed us to add money for siding for Strathern, the barber shop, and also money to consider a storage container. As the board knows, these are budget numbers. This doesn't mean this is actually happening, but we have money reserved to pursue these if it makes sense. So those are the only two changes that we made at your direction to the capital outlay list. Just to remind you of the community requests, We had the installation of sunshades, we had benches in the breezeway at the tennis courts. The handball court was proposed. The board asked us to bring back a cost for that. We've estimated that cost at $38,000 if the board wants to add that to the budget. But it's not included in the budget now. If the board wants to add another handball court to the community, we're estimating $38,000. The soccer field renovations, as I explained, those came up at the meeting. Those are underway now. The fields are closed and we're pursuing the renovations of the Santa Sue soccer fields as the community had requested that evening. And then the board had asked us for a price for the Indian Springs basketball court lighting upgrade. That estimate is $65,300. It's in your staff report if it's the pleasure of the board to add either of those, the handball court or the lighting upgrade. The operating budget, this is just a summary of all your funds. We made one change to the operating budget. The new lagoon requires environmental oversight for a period of 5 years at a cost of $10,000 a year. We've added that to the operating budget in Wayne's department. Other than that, we made no changes to the operating budget. This is a summary of all of the funds. This depicts that your budgets are balanced as proposed this evening for your consideration. The general fund budget adjustments, again, this is the revenue. Nothing has changed here in our estimates from the last time you saw it. The operating budget, like I said, we added the $10,000. Nothing else has changed here. We've also added the compensation packages that are also a part of your budget this evening are now included in the draft or the preliminary budget that we're asking you to adopt tonight. The direction I'm looking at, a couple of things I wanted to mention, a couple other follow-up items that we're still working on. Director Dennert had asked us to look at cost allocation when we get to talking about the tax base between the Simi Valley area of the district and the Oak Park area of the district. I anticipate bringing that information back to you. We have 2 more public hearings on the budget, one in July and one in August. I expect to bring back information at that responsive to Director Dennert's request at those meetings. Director Dennert also asked about assessment districts, and I believe the question was if the Oak Park area of the district wanted extra services, what would be a mechanism for them to potentially generate more revenue for the extra service levels that they might want. The question was on Fund 30, we cannot raise Fund 30 in Oak Park. It can't be different, the assessment, than the assessment in Simi Valley. So Fund 30 is not a good mechanism to increase or to consider revenue for Oak Park. Fund 70, I've worked with Ryan. He did some work with some of their experts, tax experts in his firm. Fund 70 is a structure that has been around since the mid-70s. There is some question as to if we were to use that as a mechanism to increase the assessment. We don't think it, given the legal changes in the law over the last 40 years, we don't think that's a good option. Brian did say in his staff that if we wanted to pursue that, a separate CFD would be a mechanism that would be probably the most legally palatable to follow if the board was interested in pursuing that with the Oak Park community. And then lastly, Director Gray again had asked for tree planting. He indicated that we have money in the budget for trees. We are working on the heat map, and we're going to propose to you where we plant those trees so they're in the appropriate place. So with that, that concludes our report. The direction I'm looking, are you okay with all of these things in the budget kind of broken down here? And is there any additional direction you'd like to provide us this evening? That concludes staff's report. Our recommendation is that you adopt the budget this evening.
What I assume when we get the numbers back on this building, we'll have to make some adjustments.
Right, but I don't anticipate hard numbers back until we go out to bid. So we could adjust the budget now for the estimates Wayne has, but again, we'll be adjusting them again down the road. So that's the board's pleasure. If you want to have me adjust the capital budget reflecting tonight's discussion, or we can adjust the budget later on when we have more clarity on, or a better price.
Probably should wait till we have clarity.
It's at the board's pleasure. We can amend the budget this evening to include the discussion, or we can wait to amend the budget when we have firmer numbers. Whatever you
Is
do.
that the pleasure of the board?
Yes.
Quick question
Well,
on
well,
that.
aren't we asking questions first?
Yes, we should be asking
I
questions.
actually disagree. I would do it the other way, but I thought we were asking questions first.
Yeah, this is question period.
Oh,
Staff reports concluded. It's time for board questions.
Director Avila, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a couple. So just on that same topic, and I'm curious as to what the answer is. Wouldn't it make more sense to do some sort of adjustment now, because we're clearly way under what the estimate should be on the budget? I mean, I realize there may be another change down the road, but that's true of all our projects. Wouldn't it make sense that we?
Yeah, if the board wants to reserve the funds now specific to that project, it would make sense, yes.
Right. In other words, we know it's not going to come in at the current level that we funded for it, correct?
Right.
Okay.
My thing is, if you go to option 3, we can do that. If we go to option 4, you're going to probably have to revisit some of the items in your existing budget, your existing capital budget.
Right. Actually, it's 2 or 4.
I'm sorry. If you guys direct me to budget for the estimates this evening for option 2, that will work. If we're going to budget the estimate for option 4, that's going to be tighter, and we may need to consider some of the other projects.
Okay. So my next question, and I brought this, I briefly alluded to this during the discussion on equestrian at the last meeting, and then I did speak with Wayne about this as well. I'm just a little bit baffled, and I'm curious, how is it that equestrian got on a faster track than field lighting? And I say that with the fact that for over a year, 4 or 5 board members have expressed the field lighting as a higher priority, and in speaking with Wayne, he actually said it's an easier project to complete. So I'm just curious as to how that happened.
Yeah, so what I thought I heard from the board at the last meeting was there's 5 consensus priority projects at the board. There's the activity center, there is the park, Santa Sue Park, there's the lighting projects, there's the pickleball park in Oak Park, and there's the equestrian project as a consensus. We have 3 planners, so that they told me that they could work on all 5 of those projects simultaneously. So, and because the equestrian center is an easier project that we can get done quicker, it will probably take less time to get that going under a different planner. That's what if you want to change it, that's fine, but that's the answer.
I just, maybe Wayne can weigh in. My understanding from Wayne is that it would be easier to get the lighting done sooner than it would equestrian. And again, going back, I mean, otherwise it makes last year's project priorities meeting meaningless when there were a number of people who weighed in on lighting, and we talked about lights.
The lighting is still, the lighting could have happened faster than the equestrian. What I'm saying is those 2 things can happen simultaneously.
Right.
Because we have multiple
On
people.
the time, I guess the question is, on the timeline that we had, equestrian was ahead of lighting, and again, for over a year, 4 out of 5 board members have clearly had lighting ahead of equestrian in terms of the time.
Okay, I'll ask.
Per the comment of the general manager, the lighting is still up there and is being worked on. It hasn't been set aside.
So again, my question, maybe we can have Wayne weigh in.
Yeah, let's ask Wayne. Yep.
It's actually my fault. I scheduled the lighting, since the bulk of the lighting was with Santa Susana Community Park, or the Rancho Santa Susana Phase 4. I just put Tom's timeline to go concurrent with that. I didn't really think about breaking out Rancho Simi Community Park. I know Director Avila did come to me and ask me, well, why don't we break out that portion of the work? And that is a pretty simple project. All we need to do is hire one consultant electrical engineer. All the structural work and everything's done through Musco. We can probably get it done pretty quick. It was just the way I scheduled out on my master schedule that perceived that, gave us a little more time to work on things. We can speed it up if it's your desire to get Rancho Simi at least ahead of the ball game of the bulk of the lighting project. I just would like to do the lighting conversion concurrent with the Phase 4 project because it's more advantageous to take care of all the electrical work that needs to be done one time and have one contractor coordinate all the work between phases, the 3 existing ball fields, the 5 existing soccer fields.
That would be a Rancho San
That'd be a Rancho San Susana, and I will break out the Rancho Simi, and we can expedite that one a little faster if it's your desire.
So the Rancho Simi can be done in short order.
We can probably get out to bid, we can probably have it done by, this is June, July, by early next year.
Okay, that would be awesome. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we come back to the question, do we want to adjust the budget this evening or put it off till we get better numbers?
Board, we need to
We'll have other board
take
members.
we're still doing questions.
Yeah, questions.
Before we get there, we need to
Okay.
take public comment, yeah.
Is there, I'll open the public hearing then. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the budget at this time? Is there anyone on Zoom? Then I'll close the public hearing. Board comments? Director Dinner?
I've gone first a few times. Somebody else would like to go first.
I'm sorry?
I've gone first often.
I
don't
go
wanna speak
first
over
every
everybody.
time, so I'll go later as well.
Later?
We're on comments, okay. I think adjusting the budget tonight for option 2 is probably a good idea for the activities. It's just so it's sort of an optics kind of a thing. We want it to look like what it's going to be, even though we know we're going to be tweaking it when we get the bids.
Yeah.
Am I making sense? Yeah.
Yeah, Dan, the only thing I'd ask when it comes to community input, understanding it's not going to be on this year's budget, but just to also include that we've had community requests for shade around playgrounds. That may be a conversation that works for tree planting near playgrounds, but I just want to make sure I have continued to hear more common sense that families with young children would appreciate more shade around those. So I think that's a long-term vision.
Thank you.
Do you want a motion?
Well, we're not done with comments yet. Director Denner and I still have comments.
I'll start with the easy stuff and get to the hard stuff. Easy stuff for me, the handball, I know we might need to work on a location, but I think we should add a handball court to the budget. Then my second opinion was I would like to adjust the budget now to reflect option 2 so that it's at least, I know it might get adjusted again, but it's closer to what the budget is. It doesn't for the state when they look around and say, how much money do you have? Is their budget's messed up? Well, we're saying that's budgeted and it really is, so I think it's an honest number or closer to it. And then lastly, the harder part or conversation is in Oak Park, they've asked for a higher level of service. And if the community asks for a higher level of service, I think it's our responsibility to give them options on how to have a higher level of service. And they've definitely asked for a higher level of service. And as part of that, the current budget is unfair to the people of Simi Valley. The Oak Park School District's now on their 3rd superintendent, and they're still working on a joint use agreement. They haven't put it on their agenda. I've asked them to. A board member said that they would check with their staff to put it on their agenda. I reminded them they're a board member. Board members can put things on agendas. As far as I understand, currently the toilet paper budget for Oak Park comes from Simi Valley. If you need an electrician or a plumber, the park district provides that to Oak Park, but it doesn't come out of their budget. Simi Valley pays into the revolving cash fund. Oak Park is not paying into that at the same level. So as we're discussing all these projects tonight, there's an imbalance, and if we don't address it or fix it, we'll just continue to subsidize Oak Park and, worse, not give them the option to correct the problem. That the problem can be corrected. When I think Oak Park has beautiful parks, and there's a lot of reasons it's a desirous community to live in. It's a very beautiful area, and we have a responsibility to help the citizens of Oak Park to have the level of service they would like of their community. I don't expect that this budget can solve all this, the subsidy issue, but I'd like it to move her closer to true cost. As an example of that, I don't have an answer to this, and I've talked to Dan about looking into it, but the property taxes are an estimate between the communities, and the county will be researching for us at a request what is the true property allocation taxes between them. Because when you guess what houses were worth, you are also guessing turnover, like people moving in and out. And we could guess that people move more in or out, but it's hard to create an accurate budget without getting that from the county. And Dan, you said that they probably have done that before, but they haven't done that in a long time.
Correct.
Do you have an estimate how long ago that was?
I want to say 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
So the numbers might have changed dramatically, not at all, slightly, but either way, I don't have those numbers, so we should get those. And if you think about that subsidy, that means as we look around at sometimes small projects and sometimes big projects, they start to add up. And so that brings me to Oak Park has the ability to create a CFD, which is if they would like a higher level of service and they believe that they need a higher level of service to allow them to pay for a higher level of service, and I think that's fair. And I'm going to ask the district manager to look into some details of it, but to put on a future agenda so that we can have a robust conversation before we ask our staff to research it a lot. Because I know that we might not discuss that in detail tonight, but I wouldn't want to make the staff do a huge report only to find out before you say, oh, that's a bad idea, I don't even want to consider it. So just Dan, a brief overview that doesn't take too much of your staff time so we can discuss it and see if there's future direction. And then I plan to vote against the preliminary budget tonight, not because I don't expect it to pass, I expect it to pass, but to be serious about we need to solve that subsidy issue and maybe not solve it like 100%, but move closer to true cost accounting, because currently our budget is not the true cost accounting. As an example, if we asked Dan to give us a percentage of his time dedicated to Oak Park versus St. Valley, that number doesn't match up to his allocated time, which means that's another place. I don't want to solve all those issues this year, and some of those will take years to solve, but I want to provide the level of service that people of Oak Park have come to expect and want and desire, and give them the tools to do so. For that CFD, we'll get that report back and some information on it, but I think it would be frustrating to say they don't have the right to say what their level of services are or taxation. I mean, to say the people of St. Valley will continue to subsidize them, and the people of Oak Park are not asking that, they're asking for a high level of service, and if we said we won't even consider allowing you to solve the problem, that wouldn't seem right. So I wouldn't say that we're imposing that upon them, but the different mechanisms I'm aware of would just allow them to have their voice heard to say what level of service and what level of funding would you like. And I think that's valuable. So besides that, that's all my comments on the preliminary budget.
Okay. All right. So for me, first of all, I got to start off. It's not what Director Denner said isn't going to be a reason for me to vote against the preliminary budget. But man, I admire and respect the fact that that you're going to do that on your principles, even though I may not completely agree. So I wasn't going to even make that comment, but I'm going to make that comment. So I think that's great stuff. Anyway, so first thing is I do think we need to have our budget reflect at a minimum alternative 2 as far as the activity center is concerned. We're all about transparency, and we know that we're heading for at least that cost. So I do think we need it to reflect that as soon as possible. Second, because it's not a great cost and because there is some popularity of the activity, I do agree that in our budget we should find a place for the handball courts. And then, as Director Denner said, we should actually find a place for the handball courts. Again, I think the most important part of anytime we talk about the budget is priorities. Director Gray alluded to this when we were discussing the Activity Center Phase 3, but I think above all, the main priority is to get down to where we can get that out to bid and get moving along with the project. That's far and away priority number one, and I totally agree with that sentiment. And the only other thing, if you go back and listen to any of the meetings where we discussed project priorities or budget last year, lighting was ahead of equestrian on for 4 of the 5 board members. We need to honor that, and it's a safety issue. And I'll just say, even though I do think at some point equestrian needs to get done, it's not in my top 5. But so I would like to see that we, and I understand Wayne's reasoning for not doing Rancho Santa Susana or the Eastern Park immediately, but we can do Rancho Simi Park, the Duck Park, and so I do think we need to get on that and make that a high priority to get the lighting there done as soon as possible. We have a lot of people on a lot of occasions speak about the lighting on the fields at last year's meetings and the safety issues, and we need to get on that. So those are my comments.
Also add an appreciation for Director Dennard's comments on Oak Park and the budget, and giving Oak Park options to choose how they would like their area to be run, and what they can pay for, and what the quality can and should be. I'll add in, I'm completely good with handball being added to the budget. I think it's a worthwhile project. I'd be curious how long, independent of putting it in the project, how long a handball wall court can survive. Most I've seen are wood, and so they degrade pretty depending on use and just in the weather. So I'd be interested in how long it would take until I would have to replace that project. Otherwise, I think I've already said my budget priorities and all that. And, while I respect Director Dennard's stance, I'll be voting to approve the budget.
I'll echo, approve it. I'm fine with approving the preliminary budget. I do want us to adjust the activity center numbers, obviously, and Director Dennard suggested about Oak Park. I think that's excellent. If they want more services, they're going to have to cough up more money. It seems kind of basic. So that's it.
One of the issues they have in Oak Park is they have no new development. People don't move. The assessments have remained low. I mean, it's not like other communities because everybody who lives there wants to be there.
Built out and they're there and they're not moving.
So that they're not in the same position as some communities. The community center, Rancho Santa Su, the lighting, the pickleball at Oak Park, and the equestrian center, those are my 5. And I think it's consistent with everybody else. I think it would be interesting to see the reaction in Oak Park, because I think it's very few people who actually want more service over there. My observation is most people love the community and think they're well served, and they have wonderful parks and dog parks and all of the
I would agree with you if you ask people, what are the conditions of your parks in your neighborhood in Oak Park? I think most of them would say, oh, that's a really good condition. And then if you ask, do you want more things done? Well, who wouldn't want more things done?
Of course.
But then it's like, well,
You would pay for more.
in balance, do you think it's worth it?
Yeah.
But even at that, I still believe we should have truer cost accounting, like why would Simi Valley pay for the plumber versus Oak Park?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody always wants absolutely everything, but I think most people are pretty reasonable. But anyway, those are my priorities, and the question is, do we adjust the budget now or wait? And
I say do it now.
So let me, I have a couple points of clarification and a comment or two, just to make sure I have clear direction. Relative to the Oak Park and the CFT and the budget the cost allocation, I plan to bring that back to you at we'd have 2 public hearings, one in Simi Valley and Oak Park. So I plan to bring back the process for creating a CFD in that, but also to bring back some information on moving closer to a true cost allocation so that the board can discuss that. I don't think that needs to be a part of a motion. I have that direction from a majority of the board to do that, and actually Director Dinner's asking for it. Relative to the capital projects, I do agree with Director Avila. It seems to me like all things being equal that the lights are a higher priority than equestrian by consensus. Those things can probably happen simultaneously, but if push came to shove, we would make sure the lights were on a faster track than equestrian at this point. So that's, those are my comments on those items, and it seems like we've seen nodded heads on the lights being the higher priority than equestrian at this point, from a workload staffing perspective. So what I would propose is a motion to adopt the budget as amended to include the cost for option 2, or alternative 2, regarding the activity center, to amend the budget to include that, and then also to add handball to the amended, the budget's adopted as amended to include handball and option alternative 2 for the activity center.
Yeah, I don't remember those two details that you suggested, but I thought I saw a speaker card, but was that for a different item? Or did I not see a speaker card?
I don't
Yeah.
think- I don't have any.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Dan, would this be the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought Chris,
I opened the public hearing and I didn't hear anybody.
thank you for catching that.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Chris.
You're welcome. Well, I'm here again for the BMX track, to let you guys know that we're here. I know we're talking about the budget now. I was here last month and we discussed it again.
I cannot hear.
Sorry, press the button. Press the button on that until it goes green.
Sorry.
There you go.
Thank you.
Now it's sliding down. So I'm Chris DeSantis with the Board of Directors for Sycamore BMX, back again to discuss it. Mine going blank since 5 o'clock this morning, so it's been tough. I've been working all day, but we're still very interested in the BMX track. We still have our Board of Directors. We still have all the planning and everything that's in place. So we want to make sure that the BMX track is on the budget. And as we discussed last time, we were talking about maybe looking for an alternative location for that, and I think that that's kind of the direction that we need to go. The city's not getting back to us, and it's kind of a dead point now. And then I also, was here if you guys had any questions for that.
Chris, I did have a question for you. I know that I spoke to you on the phone, and I know a dream would be a BMX track, and sometimes dreams don't come true. And I had suggested a pump track or something like Sapweed. And I know that's not what we have been discussing or planning or hoping for, but how widely used do you think that'd be? Or let's say you ride BMX, it's not, you can't practice for your race there, but you can practice somewhat. Like, do you think, obviously people should be disappointed and will be, but how comforting would that be, that knowing that there's something?
A bike park in Seymour would be great, whatever it ended up being. Of course, we've been pushing for this BMX track forever, so it's kind of hard to take our sights off of that. But if it was coming down to absolutely nothing and a pump track or something similar to Sopwith, that would be something that we would probably have to do.
And you haven't heard any update from the city?
No, I haven't.
Sorry, a follow-up question. I know you said your preference. Do you know, are you giving the royal we, like the board of directors, that's also your board's consensus, or is that your personal take?
It's my personal take, really.
Okay.
I really haven't had a chance to discuss it with the board yet. It's kind of been kind of fresh news.
Sure.
And it's always been our push to do a BMX track.
Yeah.
But the alternative is something like that. I mean, you guys see the success of the skate park. It went in quickly. I mean, they were way behind us starting, and so it's been going, and it's kind of disappointing that it's
The one in Camarillo?
the one that's here in Simi.
That skate park.
The skate park.
That was not quick, you were saying.
Not quick, but compared to ours,
Okay,
it's quick
compared- yeah,
because they came in
compared.
after us.
Chris,
and-
everything is quick compared to yours.
I know. But there's been some serious pump tracks that have been going in different communities that if you guys have a chance to look at, you can see some of the stuff that Mr. Detter's talking about. Sopwee is one example, but like in Inglewood, they just built one. They've been building them in San Diego and everything like that. And they've been highly popular. And there's even been some, competitions for pump track now. So the popularity is growing, and it would give the bicycle community somewhere to go.
Do you know why the city of Santa Clarita isn't operating their BMX track?
They're not currently, but I go to their meetings too. They're still in the same boat kind of as we are. So it's been a time type thing, but it's the same thing. They've been running into budget problems and environmental studies and stuff like that. They actually had a whole new area where they were planning on putting it, and that area's kind of been having problems too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm prepared to make a motion, but I do want to comment on what Chris had to say. My preference would still be to make it a BMX track. I mean, that was promised to them by us before 3 of us here were even board members at the sale of the previous property. It's been what we've been aiming for. It's been the expectation. I don't have a problem at trying to look at all alternate sites again, if that's the direction that their entire board wants. I do think the city should keep their promise and step up to the plate and give us the land so that we can get the BMX track going there. I think it's a huge disappointment that they have not done that. But I do think we should aim for a BMX track. So I will, just so we have a motion, I will make the motion to adopt the budget to reflect option number 2 for Activity Center Phase 3 and to reflect the addition of handball courts.
I'll second that motion, but I want to discuss it before we vote on it.
Roll call.
Could we discuss that before we vote on it?
Okay.
So I'm good with the motion. I'm only speaking specifically about BMX as a part of this. Dan, you don't have any update, correct?
I do not. I do have direction from the board at a previous meeting to talk about the BMX track and alternatives like Mr. DeSantis mentioned at a future meeting in the next month or 2. I got direction to bring that discussion back.
So the reason I'm still talking about then, and this might be a surprise comment, but Ed, if I get anything wrong, please feel free to correct me. It was last July where we went to a city council meeting, we spoke, there's a huge crowd. The city council seemed open to the idea. Then we got word that there might be an update, no promises, but maybe 90 days. I believe that was October 13th of last year, 90 days, and there's still no update. Meanwhile, we haven't pursued another plan because we're waiting on the city. So the city delayed not just that plan, but an alternative plan because we didn't pursue a serious alternative plan. So we're waiting for an update that might come any day. And the drawback to that is we wasted time, but that also, the cost has gone up for whatever we do. So the reason that, I know that we'll discuss in the future, but I think that we should be honest with our community that if we're saying we're going to pursue a BMX track, then it's hard to ask our staff to also pursue alternative locations and designs and possibilities because where the budget we're about to vote on does not include a BMX track design or alternative. Like that would say, like, sure, Dan, go research it, but we also voted not to put it in the budget.
But I just want to be clear, the project is budgeted. You mean a new design money, right?
Correct.
Yes. The project is still included in the budget.
And the next part to that is eventually to move on with another plan, you got to end the old plan. Kate, you said it with like fish or cut bait. Well, to pursue a serious new plan, eventually we have to move on. So we might discuss that in the future, but in the future, when we discuss this in more detail, I'd like us to think, well, instead of discussing all plans, get community feedback and pursue an actionable, realistic plan, which could be a pump track. And because it's summer and people are traveling, I'd ask you, board members, as you travel, look up the local community, see if there is a pump track. So imagine at Corriganville or down here on the property that we own. There is a paved path that has some jumps in it and curves and turns that might be less expensive and doable in a different location. So when we bring this back for future discussion, I'm going to ask not to come up with 5 different plans for a BMX or a bike park, but come up with a plan that's doable.
Greg?
Are you seconding the motion you're gonna vote no on?
I am.
Okay. I just figured if you wanted somebody else to second.
I was wondering the same thing. Did I give my little speech for nothing there? I didn't understand that either.
I definitely understand if I was planning the budget wouldn't pass for that. I'm just basically sending a signal to staff that I'd like them to put in some serious work on that budget issue.
Okay. Roll call?
Director Bennett,
No.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
The motion carries with a 4-1 vote, with Director Bennett voting no.
Okay. Moving on, approval for publication of legal notice allowing for public inspection of preliminary budget and specifying date and time of public hearing on district's final budget for fiscal year 2024-25.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide staff's report.
Thank you, Chair Freeman and members of the board. Based on your adoption of the preliminary budget, the next step in the process is to publish a legal notice to inform the public of the approved budget, allow the opportunity to review it, and to schedule the public hearings. The proposed hearings are consistent with the budget calendar, which are scheduled for July 17th and August 7th. And at this time, staff is requesting authorization to publish that legal notice.
Is there any questions of staff? I'll open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to address this item? In the audience or on Zoom? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Comments from board? Director Ella? Director Dinner? Director Gray? No one? May I have a motion, please?
I will make the motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Yes.
The motion carries with unanimous vote.
Thank you. We will move on to new business. Item A, authorization to extend existing terms and current concessionaire at Sandy Hills Golf Course and solicit proposals for a new food and beverage concessionaire.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Mr. Miller will provide staff's report.
Good evening, Chair Freeman and Board of Directors. In March of 2019, the board approved a concession agreement between the district and Mental Equivalent for the operation of the food and beverage concession at Sandy Hills Golf Course. The agreement was originally for 3 years with the option to extend for an additional 2 years, which the board did in 2022. The agreement was subsequently extended by a short period of time in the interim while we were negotiating a longer-term extension with Mental Equivalent. Over the term of the agreement with Mental Equivalent, their revenues had steadily risen from an average of $7.48 per round spent to $11.30 per round spent. So during the course of that agreement, their expenditures went up by about 51% per round. This is largely due to the better management practices, expansion of menus, better food and drink options, and increased revenues via the bar service that occurred at the Birdie Bar over that operation hours of the course. Staff has been engaged with negotiations with Mental Equivalent for the last few months, and over the course of that time, it became evident that we weren't going to be able to extend them in a way that they were satisfied with. So mutually we agreed to extend their contract in the interim while we went out to bid and looked for a new concessionaire. The staff is recommending this evening that the board authorize the district manager to execute the extension of Mental Equivalent through December 15th of 2024, while concurrently we are asking for authorization this evening to go out to bid for proposals for the new concessionaire at Sandy Hills Golf Course. The proposals, the agreement, and all that information is in your packet this evening. I apologize for the typos on the agreement. I got rushed and missed those. but I do have a signed agreement already corrected with the appropriate language on the Fifth Amendment. The RFP in your package this evening will propose the concept of allowing the new concessionaire to propose a flat rent rate, a percentage of gross sales, or some combination of both. It's anticipated that we will generate more revenue than we currently generate through a new agreement with the new concessionaire once we get to the negotiations with a new proposer. The rough timeline that we've proposed is this evening, if we got the authorization to go out to bid, that we would place an ad in the Ventura County Star and publish the bid package by the end of next week. And by July 16th, we'll have a walkthrough with potential bidders at the golf course so they can see the equipment and the operations as it currently sits. The week of August 2nd, we would close the proposals and contact the responders and schedule interviews with those that are proposing. By September, we would try to bring back an agreement to you for your approval for the new concessionaire. And by mid-December, we would obviously make the transition to a new concessionaire. This timeline does take quite a few months to accomplish. One, to post, to get the interview process done, and then there are some logistical issues with transferring liquor licenses and things like that that do require a lengthier period of time to accomplish. That being said, Mental Equipment has been really positive and great with us on working with us should this timeline be either able to accomplish either sooner or later. They've given me their assurances that they will not let the concessionaire services drop in any scenario while we're trying to find and replace them with a new concessionaire. So this evening, I'm requesting that the board authorize the district manager to sign the fifth agreement to the amendment, negotiated during the extension period to find the new concessionaire, which is Exhibit A in your package, and secondarily authorize the request for proposals for Simi Hills Golf Course Food and Beverage Concession, Exhibit B in your proposals. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Dr. Evelyn? Dr. Denner? Great.
Can you briefly summarize what were the sticking points that is leading to the change?
Yeah, I would say there's one and a half to two issues. One is our insurance carrier is requesting higher alcohol liability or insurance limits by any new provider. So in a part of our negotiation, we asked Mental Equivalent to up their insurance rates. The extension agreement before you this evening does contemplate that, and it actually allows a reduction in rent for the remainder of their term so that they can lift their insurance rates to the premiums that are asked for by Capri, our insurance pool. So that was a contentious back and forth at one point. Secondarily, honestly, in my opinion, and I think Mental Equivalent, Evelyn and Tony would agree to this, the long-term liabilities of running a bar and a restaurant at that location at this point of their careers was something that they were not totally interested in having that liability hang over them as a business operator. So I think that was driving it more than the insurance. I think we had kind of resolved the insurance issue in the back and forth, but I think the reality of signing up for another long-term extension with them gave them some pause on whether or not they wanted to assume some of that liability longer term. So I would say those are kind of where we mutually agreed that it wasn't probably the best for either party to continue in the way we were going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. O'Brien?
I have no questions at this time.
Is there anyone, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here representing them? No. Is there anyone on Zoom? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Comments? Director Evelyn? Director Denner?
The guacamole tonight and the vegetable cups were really good, and I've been
Yeah.
impressed with the services that they offered. So I would be hopeful that the next vendor or contractor could also do events like the previous one did and have a wide variety of food.
Dr. Gregg?
I would just echo that they have been fantastic. I think it really has elevated that space. Sorry to see them go, but understand that this is what happens in business sometimes.
Yeah, if I could just follow up, one of the goals when we got the current concessionaire, Birdie Bar, Evelyn and Tony, was to make the space, move it beyond just golfers, but make it a community space. primarily through the restaurant. Evelyn and Tony have accomplished that. So what I think I hear the board saying is that's important for a new concessionaire to continue that practice of going kind of above and beyond just your daily golfer, but also involving the community in the space.
Director O'Brien, did you have a comment?
I just like to echo what everyone else said. They've done a phenomenal job and they've made that place come alive. Sorry to see them go, but I get it.
I'm just really, I hope we have the opportunity to express it formally to them, but they've done a lot to make the community aware of the Birdie Bar as a place to hang out, as a place to rent. And so I hope when this whole process is completed, whoever is the new concessionaire has that same kind of attitude of overall community good. And it's too bad the way it worked out, but that's life, right? And if there's no other
If I
questions.
could, Sherry, we just need it as amended to correct the agreement, the language, that small edits to the Fifth Amendment. To move staff recommendation as amended.
I'll make the motion as amended.
Okay.
Go second.
Roll call.
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila,
Aye.
and Chair Freeman.
Yes.
Motion carries with unanimous vote.
We'll go to item C, 9C, approval of pay and benefit changes for one, the Rancho Simi Recreation Park District Middle Management Association, two, the Rancho Simi Recreation Park District Employee Association, three, the Maintenance and Grounds Association, and four, the underrepresented district employees.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide staff's report.
Thank you. As you are aware, the district has been engaged in labor negotiations with the 3 bargaining groups as well as unrepresented employees. And during the negotiation period, staff presented the request to the board in closed session. Those requests have been analyzed, discussed, and responded to by staff under direction by the board. Agreement has since been reached, and at this time, staff is recommending the following approval of the following negotiated changes. For middle management, Rancho Simi Employee Association, Maintenance and Grounds Association, and unrepresented employees, which includes department heads, a 4% cost of living increase effective June 21st, 2024, a $100 a month increase in the flexible spending benefit effective July 1st, 2024. And in addition, for the Maintenance and Grounds Association, a $50 increase in the boot allowance. The letters of agreement are attached for each of the groups, and staff is recommending authorization for the district manager to sign the letters of agreement and proceed with the implemented changes. And that concludes staff's report.
Director Avila, do you have any questions? Director Denner?
Nope.
Director Gray? Director O'Brien? Is there anyone in the audience to open the public hearing that would like to discuss this item? Is there anyone on Zoom? With that, I'll close the public hearing. And are there any comments or call for a motion?
I'll just briefly comment. Yeah, I'm glad we were able to do this for our employees. The feedback I've gotten is that they're really happy with this, and I'll say what I've said before. I wish we could do even more because we have outstanding employees. So with that, I will make a motion to follow the staff's recommendation.
Second.
Roll call.
Director Avila, Director Bennett. It's good.
Yes.
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
Motion carries with a unanimous vote.
Next item, approval and adoption of full-time employee classification schedule by Rancho Senior Recreation Park District Board of Directors.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Pennington will provide the report.
And based on your approval of the employee agreement, staff is now requesting Approval and adoption of the full-time employee classification schedules to reflect the agreed-upon pay ranges, which will go into effect June 21st, 2024.
Is there any question of staff? No? Is anyone in, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wish to address this? Or on Zoom? With that, I will close the public hearing and ask if there's any comment or a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Director Dennett,
Yes.
Director Frank,
Aye.
Director O'Brien,
Yes.
Vice Chair Avila,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Yes.
Motion
Sure.
carries with unanimous vote.
Chair, if I could, I'm sure on behalf of the board as well, I just want to thank Teresa for all of her hard work in working with the employees. We do this annually. She does a great job in communicating both the employees' desires, but also the board's position. So I want to personally thank her for the job she continues to do and did this year on the process.
Thank you, and on behalf of staff, do want to thank the board for these benefit adjustments, so thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to item 10, written communications. Are there any?
I had I had a request from the MAC to provide them with a report about our grounds maintenance and our vegetation removal. So I'm still working with them on that. So just letting the board know that the MAC in Oak Park had requested that we report to them at some level. So I'm clarifying exactly what they're after and what they would like to, information they would like from us.
Quite separate organizations.
Dan, how would you respond if the city of St. Valley asked you to do that?
I would probably, well, first of all, I want to understand the request, but I'd probably say we wouldn't do that. But if they wanted us to, if they wanted to come to our board to get a report and engage, I'd probably suggest we do that. But I wouldn't regularly, as a staff member, I wouldn't regularly report to another board as staff. So it leads to, so once I provide the report to them as staff, not me, but the district manager, then that leads to them providing direction to staff, because they're going to see the report, have questions, and ask us to do certain things that may be, not in keeping with the direction I may get from the elected board for the agency I work for. So
Then my quick thoughts on that is, we have the community outreach, which has been popular and very well. We would do one or the other, maybe not both.
right.
So, and maybe in the future, if the MAC regularly wanted this, we wouldn't do community outreach because we'd be at the MAC. And if we don't see that as appropriate, we'd say, well, we have community outreach.
And I'm happy to provide information. It's just, kind of the environment that's provided in and the method that it's provided, so to speak. So if they want information, absolutely, we'll be happy to give that to them. But
I mean, that's a county of Ventura group, under the direction of the county of Ventura.
right.
I would be concerned if a member of the public that lives in Oak Park wants input on their parks, they wouldn't know if they'd come to our community outreach, or, hey, Dan's giving a report at the MAC, that's where I would go to.
Right.
Tell Dan what I'd like to see.
So it does seem like we have folks that are going to the MAC on our issues. I've explained to the MAC and to those folks that they need to be coming to your board meetings with their concerns and issues, because you guys, our board is the one that can actually address those, not necessarily the MAC. But it does seem like we've got certain folks maybe not understanding that, or thinking that the MAC is the place they go to address Park District issues. And like I said, I've consistently asked them to come to your board to address you regarding those issues and concerns.
They could plug into Zoom on our meetings.
Right, yeah,
Or attend our meetings.
right.
Is there any other written communication?
I have no other.
Anyone? I'll go to reports by board. Director Evelyn?
I had no events. I do have a couple of issues I want to comment on. The first, I did become aware when I was actually asking about another issue of a situation that occurred in Oak Park a couple weeks ago that was a potential safety concern for employees out there. Because of that and discussions I had with that, I talked to Chief Rosales. I talked to people both at Oak Park Community Center and Rancho Santa Susana Community Center, and I've had employees mention this to me in the past, and that is that we do need to look into having security cameras and effective security cameras at certain locations. I know that I believe Oak Park just really recently got wireless cameras, which are already starting off with questionable results, because for any of us who have been out there for a lot of meetings, we know that the wireless situation doesn't really work out there. My understanding, although again, because I was out of town last week and I've been ill this week, I haven't really been able to look into it, but my understanding is at Sinaloa Golf Course, again, there are wireless security cameras that are virtually ineffective. So I do think that we need to, again, because of the situation I was concerned about, I know we have some coverage in terms of key areas at the activity center, but even that may be lacking. So I do think we need to take a serious look at security cameras at certain locations, primarily for employee safety, but also for the safety of our residents who use those areas. And when we do that, I think we need to keep in mind there's an actual safety concern, but there's also a perceived safety concern, and that is that whether an actual safety issue arises or not, it's making the employees feel safe regardless of the situation, rather than always looking over their shoulders or wondering what else may be going on, or maybe taking half a day out of every employee's duties if a situation does arise. Third, they serve as a deterrent, and fourth, they can be important as a liability issue. And you know, as a public park district, we shouldn't have anything to hide. We should be open to, especially when it comes to safety concerns. I think every single one of us has talked about safety and campaigned about safety and made safety a priority. And if we really mean that, then the safety of our employees should be a paramount priority. So with that in mind, I am going to ask that in the reasonably near future that we put the issue of security cameras at certain sites and effective security cameras at our sites on a future agenda in the reasonably near future. And it's important to discuss this sooner rather than later, because what you don't want to have is a situation where it's too late and someone does get harmed or someone does get traumatized, and then you respond or react to that. So that will be my request, and I hope as part of that that we get input from all interested parties, and including Chief Rosales, who has a lot of knowledge in this area. The second thing I want to discuss, we have a unique but sort of, I guess you could say, cool situation where we're actually holding the meeting on an important holiday. It was the celebration of Juneteenth, of course, is the symbolic end of slavery, and for many it was the actual end of slavery. And the festivities and celebration that come with this day are certainly warranted, because it was a huge and monumental time in our country's history. And in 15 days, we'll be having our 4th of July celebrations, which again will be the celebration of another monumental day in this country's history, the Declaration of Independence. In both situations, they're huge monumental days in our history, probably the two most important holidays as far as the nation itself is concerned, because of the importance of independence and what it means to residents of our nation. So the festivities, the celebrations today, the fireworks, the barbecues on the 4th of July, those are all warranted, those all have merit, and those all should be celebrated. But with that, I would also say, since we actually are doing this on one of the festive holidays, is that it's also a time for reflection, because the fact of the matter is that not everyone in this country has independence. The issue of slavery, or what is also known as modern day slavery, also known as human trafficking, is a true reality. And we talk about how our youth are our future, and I know we all believe that. Human trafficking, half of the victims are youth. And the average age of when they become victimized is 12 years old. So we should take a time and reflect on that. And maybe at some point down the road, there will be a third day that this country can festively celebrate independence for those who don't yet have that.
Director Evelyn? Excuse me, Director Leonard?
Ed, I appreciate your comments. They're very well thought out and meaningful, and I'll be thinking about them. For board report, Zach, you might be able to answer this. Somebody sent me that there's a water lantern festival. Have you heard of this?
Do you happen to have a date?
August?
I don't know the details. I feel like I saw a permit come through, but I don't know specifics. I could follow up with you if you'd like. Yeah.
It looks exciting.
Okay.
And then Teresa, you might be able to answer this. Recently, law enforcement caught some people vandalizing our parks, and we discussed that because they were caught, that we might be sending them a bill for at least partial restoration for the damage they've caused. I'm going to guess, although I don't have evidence that this is true, this is not the only time they've ever vandalized something. This is just the time they got caught. So even if they paid for what they did this time, likely, but not for sure, they've done a lot. Have we sent a bill, or are we in the process?
We, not necessarily on that particular arrest. We are looking into that with PD. Dan directed staff to look into that arrest to see if it affected district property. But yes, when we have a responsible party, we have issued invoices for the damages.
Okay, because I know sometimes we think, hey, we're probably not going to recover it, it's a very small amount, but our community's outraged when people vandalize parks, and would like to know that we at least try to ask them to restore the damage they've done.
I invoice for any amount, no matter how
Appreciate
small
it.
it is, yes.
There was a recent project at the dog park. Lucas completed a project with a new kiosk at the front of it, where there could be notifications of classes, activities, safety information. And I wanted this meeting, I know that we'll invite him to a future meeting, I know we do that, but thank our staff for supporting our scout projects because it's meaningful and gives public ownership of our parks. But I know for our staff, it takes a time to answer all their questions and details and make sure it's done properly. And that staff out there that day, they did a wonderful job supporting the scout. I went to the Soccer Foundation meeting, and briefly at that, they had asked questions about the project, and I said it's ongoing. And I said, I just asked for the feedback because obviously not all of them would attend a meeting like this. I said, ideally we do everything in the project, but if the budget doesn't allow for that, what's their priorities? And I asked fields, lights, parking lot, and there was one fields, then parking lot lights, and many parking lots, lights, fields, lights, parking lot. So it seemed like of those projects, the parking lot would be nice, but would be the least important at the park. Anything had to be cut. And I do want to say that Shayna Moore runs those meetings very well and is prepared to answer questions. She walks in prepared for those, and you never know what the questions are going to be, but she's on top of it, so I appreciate her. And then near future, Dan, I know we did this in the last election cycle. There's been several people have asked me questions about running for park board, and we did a meeting where you ran it and just basically went over operations once we know all the candidates in August or September. They might have a variety of opinions, but they have the same set of facts. So I'd ask that you might set that up in September, August, once obviously we know who all of them are. It was told to me by a member of our community on the Arroyo that a Soran motorcycle crashed into somebody, and they had to get medical care, and the police were out there. It was somebody without a driver's license driving a motorcycle, but because it's an electric motorcycle and they were under the age of 18, they did not have a license and crashed into somebody. I don't think our rangers responded to it. I think it was the police department. But that just makes me think something has to be done about, we're not talking about e-bikes, but electric motorcycles. And I know our rangers have prioritized that. And Dan, you've told me that they're on top of it, working on it. So I appreciate them working on that because the situation won't get better without action. And
So
that's,
someone heard?
yeah, because the bikes, one of them is advertised on the website that it's legal, except if you modify it, which there's online directions how to modify it. So it says it only goes 28 unless you modify it. But if you do, you shouldn't, but it goes 40 to 60. So they're advertising basically, buy this bike because you don't need a license, they think. You don't need if it's gas, you need a license plate, a driver's license. And it's easy to modify so it goes really quick. It's not a bicycle, that's a motorcycle. Now, I don't know what bicycle was in this, motorcycles in this particular crash. I just mean, these things are not being sold in they're not telling kids, hey, you know you can't ride this on the street or trails, right? Why are you buying it then? Where are you gonna go ride this? Do you own a ranch yourself, or where are you going? So I feel like they're tricking our youth into buying them, and then they're surprised when they actually aren't supposed to ride them. But I'll get more information about that particular accident to see what parts of that were accurate. That's it for me.
Okay, Greg?
I also want to thank Vice Chair Avila for his comments on Juneteenth and second those. And I think it is important to mark not just moments like 4th of July where we aspire towards certain values, but days like Juneteenth where we make substantive progress as a culture and society in working to achieve our values. So I just want to say thank you for those comments. And then Dan, I know there were plenty of community comments about a Pride event in Simi and want to make sure that's safe. I just wanted to check in that the Rangers and everybody is cognizant of the full situation. And
yeah, we are in communication with the police department over that, Zach and I, and we are working with them to make sure we have appropriate security plans in place in conjunction both with us and the police department. Yeah.
okay, and we've communicated with whomever's pulled the permits about.
We're going to do that as soon as we have the plan put together with the police department. Yeah. We'll be reaching out to them as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I know we've had Pride events in the past. They were very peaceful. A lot of joy was at them. Yeah, when you communicate with the police department, did you already or do you plan to let them know it's a different version of a Pride event?
Yes, they're aware of that.
Yeah, sorry, that was the subtext that, thank you for pointing out. There's more than one cause being promoted then. Other than that, attended Brian Gabler's retirement party with everyone here this evening. That was a wonderful celebration of a civic servant who's given his career to our greater community itself. And then just wanted to tout, I am excited this weekend for the Steampunk Festival at Strathern. I think that'll be a great event. I've seen lots of great publicity online. I think when I was looking earlier today, I think I saw 900 people on Facebook with interest or planned attendance, so hopefully we continue to see a growth in attendance there and a great, what is hopefully first annual event of something that can hopefully have a legacy. And that concludes my report.
Dr. Ryan?
So I want to thank Director Avila for his comments about Juneteenth. I think it's high time it became a holiday, and I'm glad it is finally, for all the reasons stated earlier. I attended the Samaritan Center Pancake Breakfast fundraiser last Saturday. It was a good event. It was not that well attended, but I don't think they've done it too many times, so I'm hoping they'll keep doing it.
Yeah, last time it was huge.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This time it was, but it still was a great event. It's good. I attended the International City of Peace meeting on Monday after our Park District hike. Coming along the event is a peace walk at the Rancho Tahoe Community Park and Veterans Plaza, also known as Lemon Park, Climate Lemon Park, on September 21st. So looking forward to that. I'm sorry to miss the Steampunk Festival. I'm going to be out of town, but have fun, and hopefully it'll be one of many. And finally, I think we should adjourn tonight in honor of Tex Ward.
Absolutely.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. I went with Director Ryan Strathern meeting, and we went over all the work that needs to be done, and I have to say, a lot of it is done, believe it or not, all the little items, and they're kind of reorganizing. And I think the new direction and the way they're structuring, I think it's going to be very positive for the organization. That's the feeling I got out of the meeting, and the people that were there that are part of the Strata group. It was all really positive. Went to the Oak Park meeting. Thank you, Director Denner, for being there. But the sound is so awful. I mean, it is really hard to follow what was going on, but they brought up a couple issues with the lagoon, and I assume,
Yeah, I can cover those.
yeah, they ain't being taken care of. I have a CSDA Legislative Committee, went on for 3 hours, and I have to say, the level of legislation that affects just daily operations is really amazing to me. I mean, more so this year than ever. And now we're still going back and forth on when Quidme fees can be paid. And the staff at CSDA has done an incredible job trying to get amendments to the legislation, and it really affects every kind of government agency and in every special district. And I can tell that the building industry has been very active because they wanting to push off fees to pay a certificate of occupancy. That's when you're supposed to get, now it's a building permit, which gives the agency the time to implement whatever service needs to be made before the new owner or tenant gets in. But that's just one. And then there's one on gate maintenance. I mean, we have 32 gates alone. And if you took LA County, and I mean, how many government gates are there? You know, that would have to be inspected and handled in a certain way. I mean, it's just that kind of minutia. It's just unbelievable. And then the Brian Gabler event, and I want to thank Sandy for the really nice plaque that was put together to give to him tonight. It was, I mean, 38 years of service, and I think it's a little unusual for someone to start like he did and work his way all the way up to city manager. Just
Wait.
yes. But I mean, it is kind of, especially in moving through the ranks of management at government institutions anyway. It was a great event, and thank you, Sandy. That's all I have.
District Manager, yes. We did have the Oak Park Community Outreach Meeting. There was, I think, 4 members of the public there, I believe. There was some concern regarding maintenance of the Oak Park Lagoon, several items that we'll address at the staff level. There was concern with the sound in the Buena Vista room. I'm going to suggest that we move that meeting over to the Nature Center in the future. There was some concern over Deer Hill Park because the Friends of Oak Park had done a project out there. Our guys went in and did some maintenance and kind of compromised the work.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because I was at the previous Oak Park outreach meeting. I honestly don't understand something. There were 4 people there, and there were what, 2 board members and 2 or 3 staff members. I'm just trying to understand this. How is sound an issue when you've got basically 8 or 9 people in the room?
It was pretty bad with that floor, and it echoes, yeah.
It was, maybe if there's more people, it'd be not as big of a deal, but it was,
Okay.
yeah, the echo was
I was
bad.
just trying to understand.
When there's more people, it's worse because everybody's talking in the audience.
When the fans go on, when the air conditioning fans go on.
Oh, Ed, it was also the AC.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to have, because I couldn't understand. Okay, thank you.
Now, there was some concern brought up about folks from the community putting fish in the lagoon. We do have a sign out there that says don't do that, but there was concern about that. And we did field the request from Janet Orkney that they'd like the board to meet in Oak Park 2 times per year. Moving on from that meeting, we did get approached by the city. The city's considering an expansion of the mosque. I think you guys may have seen that in the news. The issue is parking for us. We have one small parking lot that services both the Houghton building, the Little League fields, and the park over there. So they're exploring parking options. I don't feel from a staff perspective that we can give up any of our parking because we have a very small parking lot that services, again, the park, the Little League fields, and the building. So I think the city's going to have a meeting with us about that, but I'm not inclined as staff to offer up our
I asked one of the
parking lot.
commissioners if they had mentioned that they plan to use our parking, and she said no.
Okay, so,
I said, because we haven't given any
yeah.
reason, I mean, they couldn't say that.
Yeah. The position for the golf manager did close last week. We're reviewing the applications now, and we'll be setting up oral board and interviews for that in the coming few weeks. The elections, we have contacted the elections office, and we'll be bringing back the timing of when terms end and begin and when our swearing in your July meeting. The HVAC project that you guys approved, I just wanted you to know that in August, that's going to have an impact to our building and maybe some public service. So as they do that project, they're going to have to be moving around, and we're going to be moving folks around, but there will be some impact, hopefully not much, to our service to the public, and that'll be the important thing we try to prioritize. Our pickleball plans were submitted to the county on April 24th. We did check in with them last week. They said they hope to have comments back to us in 2 or 3 weeks was the answer. So that's the Oak Park pickleball. So hopefully we get those back, whatever comments they have or an approval in a couple weeks. And then another project, I think I had previously briefed the board on this, but there's a housing project going in on the corner of Cochran and Tapo, where the Shell station, the Taco Bell is. They had previously asked for a waiver or a credit for some small area they're putting in their project to our park development fees. I had previously said that staff would not recommend that. They have requested time with myself and Wayne to review that again. So our position as staff is that we would not normally provide a waiver in that scenario. I did tell them if they'd like to approach the board on that, they're welcome to do that. So they're reaching out again on that. That's a heads up for you on that issue. And with that, your next board meeting is fairly long, July 17th, and we have a meeting on August 7th. We are dark on the meeting right around the first meeting of July in honor of Independence Day. We have scheduled for the 17th right now, which I will probably be moving some of these to your first meeting in August. But upcoming board items for the next couple of meetings are the public hearing for the budget for the Simi Valley area, approving the payment for the CalPERS liability. We prepay that and get a discount. We need the board to approve that. The mental health programming enhancements will bring to you either in July or August. We've got to bring a policy update for workplace violence, for new workplace violence requirements that are in place at the state level. We will bring you back the policy on the change of officers, elected officials, and the timing of that I mentioned. We have the item on city RSRPD staffing that I know Ryan will be working on potentially for that meeting or a meeting around there. You guys had also mentioned wanting to talk about the BMX track and considering an alternate location. I don't know that that'll be on the July 17th meeting, but it may be on one of your August meetings. Elaine, you had asked for recognition of the community volunteers. We'll contemplate bringing those folks. We've got the MRCA final budget. So those are the items that are on tap for either your meeting on the 17th or the 7th. That's quite a lengthy agenda, so I'm going to try to move some of those, kind of even those two meetings down.
Just for David, that was at the community council breakfast. That's the only person I was talking about.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yes.
I just wanna confirm, and I think you mentioned this, I think you answered my question, but just to confirm, when you bring back the, election of officers and,
Yes.
that's gonna be as a policy manual item, correct?
Correct, that might be a recommendation to amend our policy manual to reflect, to make
So that
it
it's
accurate.
more
Yes.
accurate.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
That concludes my report.
Dan, I heard what you said about mosque. My thought is we wouldn't just give away parking to anybody that just said, "Can we take over your parking lot?"
Right.
But if there's a way to work together to say they park in it sometimes, but then we get to use the parking lot or some sort of mutual benefit, I'd be open to that.
Okay.
And then the project that's on Tabo and Cochrane, my concern would be that they would build a park-like amenity, but eventually it'd only be for that neighborhood, not for the community.
Correct.
But if they're going to eventually approach a board member, if I'm available, I'd be interested in going to the meeting where you're meeting with them or waiting for them to approach a board member.
Okay.
But just with the thought of, if they're trying to build a park in place of it, I would like it to be an actual community park.
Okay.
And then lastly, I did mention my comments, and I just didn't want to forget. I saw a piece of good news today, and I just wanted to share it. Our tourism board in Simi Valley approached some influencers online and said, would you come to visit Simi Valley and tell us your experiences? And some influencers came and made an Instagram post about how Simi Valley was LGBT friendly, and they enjoyed visiting our parks and our trails, and they had a joyous and fun day, and then promoted us to say that we're a friendly community. And Anthony Angelini and the tourism board worked on that, and when I saw that post, some days you don't see good news, but when you see that, I felt a lot better that we're making progress.
Good. Is there any other comments before we adjourn?
In memory of.
We'll adjourn in Tex Ward's memory. I don't know if any of you ever got to meet him, but he really, it was over 50 years with the Caneo, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if he was 38 years as the general
38.
manager there. 38 as the general manager. He may have done a few years before that.
Yeah.
For the district generally. But
He's quite an amazing man and did an amazing job. Really impact on the whole Caneo Valley, I would say. Is there any other comment? Then we will adjourn.